Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Chapter 1. Do you believe me now? So, you're saying you're stuck in a time loop, and every time you wake up at 6 the next morning, it's still April 9th? In the hallway of the school, Yukino crossed her arms, her right hand's fingers pressing thoughtfully against her fair chin. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on a handsome boy in front of her, with an unmistakable expression of pity for an idiot. It was already after school. She stood upright, her slender, graceful figure poised perfectly. Her shapely legs, wrapped in black thigh-high socks, were strikingly well-proportioned and alluring. To be precise, even if I stay awake all night and reach 6 o'clock, time will still reset back to today. April 9th. Fushimi Makoto spoke calmly. Even though the beautiful girl before him was clearly expressing with her eyes, "I have no interest and no patience to listen to your sci-fi story." Oh. Yukino nodded lightly, her tone growing even colder. "Is there anything else you wanted, Fushimi-san?" Fushimi Makoto, however, asked, "Aren't you about to go find Hiratsuka-sensei?" Yukino's brows furrowed slightly. Before she could speak, he continued, "You're planning to talk to Hiratsuka-sensei about the club activities, right?" Her expression finally changed. "How do you know that?" Fushimi Makoto's attitude remained indifferent. The answer is right in the question. Time loop. Yukino's delicate brows furrowed even deeper. She thought he was completely making things up. But she really was planning to find Hiratsuka Shizuka to discuss club matters. "I know you don't believe me yet. Let's go to the faculty office together. Though, Hiratsuka-sensei has already left," Fushimi Makoto offered. Yukino was briefly stunned. "Left? You can call her now. She'll say, 'Sorry, I have something really important today.'" Fushimi Makoto added, "That important thing she's talking about is a matchmaking meeting. But in the end, the other party stands her up, and she ends up drinking beer alone in a park." Yukino. She was at a loss for words. Fushimi Makoto's demeanor was so natural that even her keen insight couldn't detect a hint of fabrication. Which meant he was telling the truth. But how was that possible? Yukino stayed silent for a long moment before speaking coldly, "I'll verify it right now." Fushimi Makoto followed alongside her. Yukino didn't object. When the two arrived at the faculty office, it was just as Fushimi Makoto had said. Other teachers informed her that Hiratsuka Shizuka had left early today. Subconsciously, Yukino glanced at Fushimi Makoto, who simply raised a hand and gestured politely. She understood. He was signaling for her to call. Without wasting words, she pulled out her phone and dialed Hiratsuka Shizuka's number. When she explained she needed to see her, Hiratsuka's response matched exactly what Fushimi Makoto had predicted. "Sorry, Yukino. I have something really important today. Are you in a rush? Maybe we can talk tonight when I'm free?" Listening to Hiratsuka's gentle voice, Yukino's chest rose and fell slightly as she maintained her composure. "Okay." After hanging up, Yukino's beautiful eyes returned to Fushimi Makoto. This time, her gaze flickered, and her voice was less composed. "Why?" Fushimi Makoto replied, "Because I've been through this conversation countless times already." Yukino caught the key point. "So, you've been coming to find me often in the time loop. I even tried multiple times to win you over." Yukino almost short-circuited. Her pretty face turned cold. "If what you're saying is true, then why me?" Fushimi Makoto remained as composed as ever. "Because aside from you, whether it's Kasumijoka-senpai or the famous quintuplets at school, they all treated it like a joke." Yukino fell silent again. Her emotions were complicated. She had heard from her mother that the quintuplets' father was a valuable connection, which was why she had been enrolled at this school. As a first year, she had only been attending this school for less than a week. Because of her beauty, she had already become as renowned as Kasumijoka Utaha, a second year. Meanwhile, Fushimi Makoto and Hayama Hayato, because of their good looks, were currently the 2 most popular boys in school. Before today, Yukino and Fushimi Makoto hadn't even properly spoken to each other. Their only interaction had been a brief nod of greeting in the hallway. "Want to take a walk with me?" At that moment, Fushimi Makoto's voice sounded. Yukino instinctively asked, "Where to?" "To give you more chances to verify what I'm saying." Upon hearing that, Yukino didn't respond verbally but quietly followed him. They left the school building together. Suddenly, Fushimi Makoto said, "Over there at the soccer club, someone twisted their ankle. The kind-hearted Hayama-kun will help them to the infirmary." Yukino's steps paused slightly, and she instinctively turned her head. Sure enough, within 10 seconds, she saw Hayama Hayato helping an injured classmate walk by. "Let's go." Fushimi Makoto resumed walking. Yukino took a deep breath, her breathing growing slightly rapid. Tension and excitement mixed in her chest. Countless emotions exploded in her mind. After leaving the school grounds and walking just a short distance, Fushimi Makoto stopped again. This time, he didn't rush to speak. Instead, he took out his phone, pulled up the alarm clock screen under Yukino's watchful eyes, and set an alarm for 1 minute later. After setting it, he handed the phone to Yukino. Yukino looked down, puzzled. "What's this?" "Hold it. Stay here and don't move," Fushimi Makoto instructed simply. Still confused, Yukino took the phone. Then she watched Fushimi Makoto walk across the street. With about 30 seconds left before the alarm would go off, a mother and her child approached from the opposite direction. Fushimi Makoto deliberately slowed down, meeting them in the middle of the road. With 20 seconds left, Yukino saw Fushimi Makoto, without explanation, pushing the mother and child forward. "Eh? What are you doing?" The confused and startled voices of the mother and child rang out, but Fushimi Makoto calmly continued pushing them along. With 10 seconds left until the alarm, Yukino suddenly heard a sharp roar of an engine. She barely had time to lift her head and look toward the source of the sound. A black car, engine screaming like it was floored, came hurtling toward them at high speed. At the same moment, Fushimi Makoto shoved the mother and child toward the curb. And the black car roared right through the spot they had just been standing. The timing was perfect. From pushing the mother and child aside to dodging the speeding car, Fushimi Makoto moved with an almost casual grace. Before Yukino could even react with shock, the black car crashed straight into a roadside shop. With a deafening crash, shards of glass and debris flew into the air, swirling and scattering messily across the ground. The car lay wrecked and motionless. Passers-by who had witnessed the scene were either frozen with fear or immediately rushed over. Yukino stood frozen in place. At that moment, the alarm on Fushimi Makoto's phone rang out. The mellow chime piercing the air. Though the alarm wasn't loud, to Yukino's ears it sounded deafening. It felt as though all other sounds had disappeared, and only the alarm remained. The crash and the alarm had coincided perfectly. Not a second off. Staring blankly, Yukino clutched Fushimi Makoto's phone tightly and looked across the street. Fushimi Makoto was also looking at her. His lips moved silently. Although there was no sound, Yukino understood. "Do you believe me now?" That's what Fushimi Makoto said. Yukino's heart pounded violently. Her crimson lips trembled as she whispered, "Why?" The first time, she was asking why Fushimi Makoto knew what she was thinking. The second time, she was asking why such a thing had happened. Obviously, she completely believed him now. Chapter 2. How many girls has he conquered? At this moment, Yukino's heart was extremely shaken. If she had only half believed Makoto's earlier theory about the time loop. Now, she fully believed it. If there were no time loop, how could he have set an alarm just before the car accident, then, as if taking a casual stroll, leisurely and effortlessly helped that mother and son avoid the crash? This kind of precise timing. Down to the second. To avoid an accident could only mean one thing if there were no time loop: he was Superman. Only after repeating this exact moment countless times within a time loop could Makoto achieve that level of precision. The scene was so impactful that Yukino forgot to move her legs, even forgetting that Makoto had just waved at her. It wasn't until Makoto approached her that she finally snapped back to reality, subconsciously returning his phone. Then, nervously, she turned her gaze toward the accident scene and was about to make a call, but a warm hand gently stopped her. She looked at Makoto with confusion. Makoto shook his head and said, "It's no use." The driver died instantly. He was speeding because he had gambled away his family's fortune and was heavily in debt, so he chose to get drunk and race through the city. And by the way, the car he was driving was stolen. Yukino froze. "Isn't that just scum?" "Exactly. He is scum," Makoto said, once again reading her thoughts. Yukino's breathing faltered slightly. Her beautiful eyes stared at his handsome face. "You investigated all this during the time loop?" "Obviously," Makoto admitted. Yukino was about to say more when the mother and son suddenly ran over, bowing deeply and emotionally thanking Makoto. "Thank you, really, thank you so much. We were almost—" The mother's voice trembled with emotion, full of lingering fear. Thinking of how she and her elementary school-aged son had almost been hit, she couldn't control her emotions. "Please calm down first," Makoto said calmly, as if nothing had happened. Yukino quietly stood by without interrupting. He must have witnessed this scene too many times to remain this composed. Wait a minute. Did this mean he saw this mother and son meet with the accident every single day, no matter how many times he saved them, only for it to repeat the next day? Yukino's gaze flickered, her feelings suddenly complicated. After the mother and son left, Makoto turned to her and smiled. "Are you wondering what I'm thinking?" "Yes." Yukino didn't deny it. She was genuinely curious. In a calm voice, Makoto continued, "The first time I saw them die in the crash caused by the drunk driver, I decided to help them avoid it. But every day after that was the same. No matter how many times I saved them, it kept happening over and over again." "So you started feeling helpless and numb?" Yukino guessed. Makoto replied, "Yeah. At first, it was just numbness, but eventually, it turned into frustration. In the end, I simply avoided this street altogether, trying to distract myself with other things." Yukino fell silent. That must be such a painful feeling. Just imagining it made her feel suffocated. "Let's go. I'll continue showing you the proof," Makoto said. "Actually, I already believe you." Yukino answered silently in her heart but still followed him. "Is that Matsuke's sensei?" Passing by a shopping mall, Yukino spotted a familiar figure. Makoto nodded. "That's her." In the direction their gazes pointed, a petite but curvaceous, incredibly sweet-looking woman was carrying a bag of apples out of the mall. "Is this part of the verification plan too?" Yukino asked curiously. Makoto pointed at Matsuke's Mayu's petite figure. "The apples she's holding are about to fall." Matsuke's Mayu, the school's art teacher, was very popular due to her sweet looks and gentle voice. Her personality was also incredibly kind, and her fame at school wasn't small. And her kindness wasn't just ordinary kindness. If she liked someone a lot, she could even spoil them indulgently. Because of this, Makoto had once tried to conquer her, spending a lot of time getting to know everything about her. Even including her apartment layout. Very familiar. Her apples are going to fall? Yukino realized she wasn't even surprised anymore at these prophecy-like statements. 5 seconds later, Matsuke's Mayu cried out softly, "Oh no!" Several apples fell from her bag and rolled toward Makoto and Yukino. Makoto and Yukino bent down almost at the same time, picking up the fallen apples. "Fashimi, Yukino Shida?" Matsuke's Mayu looked delighted when she saw 2 of her students helping her. Her pretty face quickly shifted to a curious expression. "Are you 2 on a date?" "No, we're just out walking," Makoto said casually. "By the way, Matsuke's sensei, are you planning to watch a movie tonight?" Matsuke's Mayu looked surprised. "How did you know?" Without answering, Makoto continued, "If you're planning to catch the 6 p.m. romance movie, I suggest you go later. The 6 p.m. show is already sold out." "Eh? Really? Really? A friend who works at the theater told me." "Thank you, Fashimi-kun. I almost made a wasted trip," Matsuke's Mayu said with an extremely sweet smile. Yukino frowned slightly, her heart full of suspicion. She remembered Makoto had once said to her, "I once tried to conquer you." So, had he also conquered Matsuke's sensei? Perhaps. It wasn't just her and Matsuke's sensei. Watching the 2 of them chat happily, Yukino's bold suspicion grew stronger. In her view, Makoto not only joked and laughed easily with Matsuke's Mayu, but even said, "Does Matsuke's sensei live alone? Why don't we exchange contact info? I live just downstairs from you, so if you ever need help, you can call us anytime." "Not me. Us." Matsuke's Mayu agreed with a face full of delight. As Matsuke's Mayu happily left, Yukino finally couldn't hold back and said with a blank expression, "What did you mean by us just now?" Makoto said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. Time will reset tomorrow anyway, and you'll forget everything." "Does this question even matter?" Yukino froze. She was silent for 2 seconds, then said, her voice low, "I'm going to buy a bottle of water." "Want one?" "No need." Yukino walked toward the convenience store alone. Her mood suddenly soured. Time loop, world reset. Besides him, what did the rest of them count for? Were they NPCs? The moment she heard what he said, she realized this crucial point. It made her inexplicably uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Makoto watched her beautiful figure and felt his own thoughts drifting. As a transmigrator, he couldn't even remember how many years he had spent stuck on April 9th. In his previous life, he died suddenly from overwork. When he opened his eyes again, he had become a high school student. At first, he thought he had gone back in time and even considered ways to make money and follow the classic reincarnation novel route of becoming the world's richest man. But once he realized he was actually in Japan and no matter what he did, he couldn't get past April 9th, his billionaire dream was crushed. Despite having his high school body, he had entered a two-dimensional world full of beautiful girls. What the hell am I even doing here? JPG in this life, his parents were still alive, but because of the time loop, he hadn't even seen the Fushimi couple yet. The time loop meant he could do whatever he wanted in this world. No matter what he did, everything would reset the next day. The most important thing was that his memories would remain intact. Thus, he learned a lot of things and, using infinite save loading, conquered many beautiful girls. He had tried bungee jumping without a harness, getting hit head-on by a drunk driver, duo queuing ranked games with Matsuke's Mayu, and experiencing the warmth of Kasumijoka Utaha's embrace. Yukino was the hardest to conquer. After all, he only had one day. The most intimate thing he had done with Yukino was convincing her to join a couples challenge event at a mall, where he princess carried her all the way to the goal. However, seeing her blushing and speechless face afterward was indeed incredibly cute. Chapter 3. So I have a system. When Makoto proactively invited Yukino to have dinner, the girl agreed without any hesitation. Everything that had happened today had clearly and completely piqued her curiosity. They had oden for dinner. Although Makoto offered to pay, Yukino insisted on splitting the bill. Fushimi didn't push the issue. Because of the time loop, he had never cared about money anyway. His wallet would simply reset the next day. At first, this situation felt pretty satisfying, but as time went on, Makoto started to experience a kind of fatigue, similar to aesthetic fatigue. Just like in that movie, Groundhog Day. The only thing that made him genuinely happy was that whenever he talked to Yukino about the time loop, this girl would always end up believing him. That counted as a kind of emotional value in his repetitive life. Where are you planning to take me next? Seated across from him, Yukino ate gracefully, her beautiful eyes openly fixed on Makoto's face. It was clear she wanted to continue experiencing these novel events. Even if everything would reset tomorrow. How about going to Chiba? Makoto suggested. Chiba? Yukino showed a doubtful expression. That was her hometown. Makoto admitted frankly, exactly what you're thinking. We could go meet your mother. Yukino fell silent for a moment. Remembering how he had been pursuing girls in the time loop, her delicate face grew cold. You and my mother. Where is your mind going? Makoto said, a little amused as he looked at her. Yukino's tense expression relaxed slightly, though her tone remained cold. Then why bring up Chiba? Because you want to keep experiencing new things. Your mother is currently facing a business problem. There's an important deal she's very concerned about that hasn't been finalized. I think I know what you're about to say. Yukino's expression turned helpless. Sure enough, what Makoto said next was exactly what she had guessed. I had some free time, so I looked into her potential business partner. Since I had plenty of time, I once helped them close the deal. As he spoke, Makoto laughed. Because of that, she even introduced me to Miss Haruno. Hearing him so bluntly mention her mother and sister, Yukino's headache worsened. And then? Nothing much. Miss Haruno isn't as cute as you are, so I'd rather spend time with you. Thank you for the compliment. Yukino's tone was stiff. It wasn't that she was shy about the compliment, rather, the thought that she might have been pursued by Makoto in the time loop complicated her feelings immensely. After dinner, Makoto took Yukino to see Hiratsuka Shizuka. They only watched her from a distance. Just like Makoto had said earlier, Hiratsuka Shizuka sat alone on a park bench, looking bitter. The streetlights illuminated her figure, highlighting her loneliness even more. Should we go say hi? Makoto glanced at Yukino beside him. No. Yukino refused firmly. She had no desire to face a woman who had just failed a matchmaking date. Meeting at a time like this, Yukino figured Hiratsuka Shizuka would definitely feel embarrassed. Makoto guessed her thoughts and said, if we went over to greet her, sure, she'd be embarrassed at first, but if we patiently encouraged her, Hiratsuka-sensei would bounce back. As he spoke, he remembered something and teased, actually, Hiratsuka-sensei blushing when she's flustered is pretty cute too. Yukino immediately shot him a cold glare. The meaning behind her eyes was clear. Can we not talk about such strange things? Unbothered, Makoto said, I'll take you to meet another girl who's going to be feeling down tonight. Feeling down? Yukino's curiosity was piqued again. She followed Makoto across 2 streets and finally stopped outside an office building. About 5 meters ahead of them, A short-haired girl stood looking dejected, while a man in a suit tried to console her quietly. Is that a Nakano? Yukino recognized her. But since she had no contact with the quintuplets at school, she didn't know her name. Makoto took the opportunity to add, her name is Nakano Akika. Oh. Yukino responded softly, her gaze sweeping across Akika's ample chest in surprise. Was that really the figure a girl their age should have? And then looking at her beautiful face and slender waist. It was the classic slim tree bearing heavy fruit. Suddenly, Yukino understood why the quintuplets were so famous at school. Even she had heard countless stories about them. You're not feeling inferior because of her figure, are you? Makoto saw through Yukino's inner thoughts. Yukino said calmly, do you think I would care about something like that? Of course not. Then there's your answer. Yukino retorted, then glanced again at Nakano Akika, who was hanging her head, and asked in a low voice, why is she feeling down? Before Makoto could answer, Nakano Akika happened to look over. When she saw Makoto and Yukino's faces, she froze for a moment. Then she quickly said a few words to the man beside her, put on a polite, beautiful smile, and walked over gracefully. Good evening, Yukino Shita-san, and Fushimi-san. Her voice was as sweet as her appearance, immediately lifting people's moods. But the cheerful smile she now wore was a stark contrast to the dejected figure she had been earlier. Hello, Nakano-san. Yukino wasn't surprised she was recognized. After all, she was a celebrity at school too. Makoto also greeted her. Nakano Akika smiled familiarly, you can just call me Akika. That way, you won't mix me up with my sisters when you meet them later. Yukino was about to speak when Akika suddenly exclaimed, her face lighting up with gossip, wait, did I just interrupt your date? Sorry about that. Seeing the apologetic yet gossipy look on Akika's face, Yukino calmly crossed her arms across her chest. It was her signal to attack. Chapter 4, So I have a system, too. In the next moment, Yukino said in a flat voice, I once read that most by the way comments in life are actually premeditated. Originally, I was only a little curious about your relationship with that man. But you rushed over and tried to change the subject right away, attempting to divert my attention. The more she spoke, the stiffer Akika's expression became. Now that you're so eager to cover it up, I'm even more curious about your relationship with that man, Akika-san. As Yukino finished speaking, the corners of her lips curved into a faint, mocking smile. Truthfully, Yukino had a good impression of Akika's bright, sunny image at first. But the moment Akika tried to deflect suspicion by teasing her in Makoto, Yukino frowned. She was very familiar with this formula. If she hadn't reacted, Akika would have kept smiling and continued, all while hiding her secret and shifting embarrassment onto Yukino. This formula was something she had seen countless times from her sister Haruno. That's why she had no hesitation in exposing it. What a formidable woman. Nakano Akika's heart thudded violently. She hadn't expected her small attempt to change the topic to be seen through and ruthlessly cut down. It felt like a swift and clean sword strike. No chance to even struggle. Instinctively, she looked at Makoto. But he just smiled at her. Don't worry about me. Just answer Yukino's question. Hearing him call her by her name, Yukino raised an eyebrow but quickly relaxed. She decided not to nitpick. Clearly, Makoto was already very familiar with her. So calling her Yukino out of habit was normal. She just felt a bit uncomfortable inside. While Akika was struggling to find an excuse, her phone suddenly rang from her skirt pocket. Grasping the lifeline, she quickly picked up the phone and smiled awkwardly. It's my sister. Sorry, I have to go. With that, she hurried away. Yukino glanced at Akika's generous bust bouncing as she ran, then turned her attention back to Makoto. He met her gaze and said, why are you looking at me? I didn't call her. Yukino's expression hardened. You should know what I want to ask. Oh, you want me to take you sightseeing? No problem. Fushimi's deliberately oblivious answer earned him a fierce glare from Yukino. And her pale cheeks flushed slightly pink. She's so cute. Seeing her blush, Makoto felt a surge of happiness, but he kept a straight face. I get it. You want to know about Nakano Akika. You should have just asked. Yukino kept her face stoic and said nothing. Fushimi continued casually, that man is her agent. She's upset because she missed out on a supporting role in a morning drama. When she tried to step back and fight for a smaller role with lines, it was already too late. Yukino blinked slightly in surprise. You mean she's an actress? More like a background extra. That's surprising. Yukino shook her head, not expecting such a turn of events. A high school actress? That wasn't something you saw every day. After that, Makoto and Yukino just wandered the streets for a while, encountering no other unusual events. At 7:30 p.m. Makoto walked Yukino to her apartment door, and she politely said, Thank you for walking me home. Makoto teased, aren't you going to invite me in? Yukino lifted her fair chin calmly. Should I take that as Fushimi-san trying to court me? Not really. If I were trying to pursue you, I wouldn't have wasted time wandering around. I would have quickly found something you like to win your favor. Should I praise you for your honesty? If possible, please praise me a few more times. After Fushimi finished speaking, Yukino didn't respond. Tonight's experience satisfied her greatly. After all, she had never encountered such supernatural phenomena before. Still, thinking about how everything would reset tomorrow made her a little irritable. She met Fushimi's gaze again, finding no trace of any romantic advances. Clearly, he had been telling the truth. She hesitated for a moment, wanting to exchange contact information. At that moment, Makoto said, "Let's exchange contact info." Under Yukino's stunned gaze, he handed her his phone. She tried to hide her embarrassment and exchanged numbers with him. Goodbye. This time, she didn't linger and left immediately. Makoto also walked away. He wasn't concerned about the phone number. It will disappear tomorrow anyway. This repetitive life was starting to feel boring to him. As for Yukino, she was destined to have a sleepless night. She sat at the head of the bed, still in her pajamas, staring blankly into space. Her pajama pants covered the perfect curves of her legs, but revealed her equally flawless small feet. Those delicate little feet, just the right size to fit in a hand, gleamed softly under the light, their snow-white skin unblemished. Her slender, pink soles rested absent-mindedly on the soft bed sheets, and her round, adorable toes were neatly aligned one by one. Without any nail polish, her youthful toenails were clear and smooth like jade, exuding a natural beauty. It wasn't until 2 in the morning that she finally dozed off in a daze. In the morning, awakened by the sound of the alarm clock, she sat up feeling a bit fatigued. As a disciplined and excellent girl, her biological clock had always been very healthy. Picking up her phone to turn off the alarm, she couldn't help but recall what had happened yesterday. Huh? Wait. Why do I still remember? Yukino froze for a second, then hurriedly looked at the date. April 10th. It wasn't April 9th at all. Her face turning cold, she tapped on Makoto's contact, quickly edited a message, and sent it. You lied to me? On the other side, Makoto had no time to worry about Yukino's message. Because he had just discovered that he had actually gotten out of the time loop. More importantly, he even heard the system's notification sound. Intern System 4399 reporting in, finally found you, my host, so I actually have a system. Chapter 5, Human Nature, Intern System 4399 reporting in, finally found you, my host, detected a problem with time. Oh no, host, how have you spent decades in this world? Hearing the mechanical voice of the system, Makoto was even more surprised than it was, so after all this time, I actually do have a system. Yes, host, the system was supposed to cross over with you, but I got lost. You're even more useless than an FW knife. Please don't scold me. I'm just an intern, so the reason I got stuck in a time loop is because you couldn't find me? That seems to be the case, rubbish. Makoto felt a bit conflicted. So in the end, this whole mess was the system's fault. Host, you've spent too long here, so the system tasks were forcibly updated. Now I can't graduate from my internship. Tragic, Makoto thought for 2 seconds, then raised a finger like that meme. I have a plan. Please tell me more, host. You just give me benefits according to your own rules, and I'll help you complete your internship tasks. Isn't that a win-win? That does make sense. But since you've been here for decades, your tasks have been forcibly updated, no problem. The strong never complain about their environment. Makoto was full of confidence. In the time loop, he had learned a lot. If not for the fact that his physical condition reset every morning, he might have turned into a superhuman after decades of training. Fortunately, the skills and experience he acquired weren't reset. Now, with his useless intern system tagging along, he had to rely on himself to push forward. He even thought that his situation was just like that joke. You've mastered offense and defense. Good. Now you can challenge Genichiro Ashina. Host, my entire internship journey depends on you now issuing new beginner missions. Choose 1 out of 3. We've detected that you already know Yukino Shita Yukino. Please become her most beloved elder. You must earn her genuine recognition, and she must call you with a title showing respect. Mission reward, Badge of the All-Rounder Girl, Beginner Mission 2, you have met Nakano Akika. Please become the elder she trusts the most, with the same conditions as above. Mission reward, Nakano Akika's Potential Badge, Beginner Mission 3, you have met Matsuke's Mayu. Please become the person she likes the most among the opposite sex. Whether as a lover or a close friend, Either way counts, mission reward, Saint Mayu or, the beginner missions were this tough? Makoto suddenly felt lucky. Thankfully he had gone through a time loop. Otherwise completing these missions would have been extremely difficult. But thinking again, it was exactly because the useless system had gotten lost that the beginner tasks were forcibly updated. As for the Saint Mayu mentioned in the missions, he naturally knew about her. Mayu had an extremely gentle personality. No matter who she interacted with, she was always soft-spoken and responsible, making her extremely popular at school. While Saint often had a negative connotation on the internet these days, in Mayu's case, it was genuine high praise. Host, are you confident? The system asked hesitantly. Why do I have to pick only one? I'll take on all 3 missions at once. That way I can complete 3 tasks simultaneously, and you can graduate faster too. Huh? Are you serious, host? I'm gonna fight 10 people. Makoto exuded the aura of Donnie Yen. Under his firm insistence, the useless intern system was persuaded. Plus, eager to finish its internship as soon as possible, it issued all 3 beginner missions at once. In addition, there was a starter gift pack. Your starter gift pack has been distributed, 3-time loop card. You can choose any date to initiate a time loop, and continue looping until you're satisfied. Perfect? More chances to grind experience. 3-time loop cards to match 3 beginner missions. The advantage was his. This confirmed his guess even more clearly. He had entered the time loop because the system couldn't find him in time. Originally, this power was supposed to be under his control. After finishing his morning routine, Makoto finally saw the message from Yukino. Just a simple "you lied to me." But it was filled with the girl's anger and doubt. She might be wondering whether yesterday's experience was all arranged by Makoto with hired actors. But if it were actors, there would be too many inconsistencies. Facing a Yukino full of doubt, and thinking about his beginner mission, Makoto simply sent her a smiling emoji. The kind of polite, ambiguous smile that looked like he had a lot to say but chose not to. After all, in this situation, the more he explained, the more trouble he'd invite. But just sending an emoji would keep Yukino's curiosity piqued. There was a good chance she would seek him out again today. After all, strategy was all about playing the right tricks. After breakfast, Makoto headed out and happened to bump into Mayu, who was also on her way to school. They lived on the same floor of the apartment building, which was why she had been so friendly with him yesterday. Good morning, Matsuke-sensei. Good morning, Fushimi-kun. Today Mayu was again wearing her usual light-colored, waist-cinching top and a long skirt. Because of her short stature, the long skirt covered the fact that her legs weren't particularly long, while beautifully highlighting her mature curves. The waist-cinching top further emphasized her full chest, and the tapered waistline flowed downward, outlining a breathtaking waist-to-hip ratio. Do your best in art class this afternoon. Mayu said sweetly. Maybe I'll surprise you during art class. Makoto replied. Eh? So confident? Seeing Mayu's surprise, Makoto didn't bother explaining much. He had practiced drawing for a long time during the time loop. Because drawing was the key to unlocking Mayu. Just like he had learned screenwriting and photography in the loop. To unlock a geisha. Working hard to win over beautiful girls. Well, that was just human nature. Upon arriving at school, Makoto parted ways with Mayu and headed to his classroom. He had quite a few acquaintances in his class, Hayama Hayato, Miro Yumiko, and even Nakano Itsuki, who was dozing off on her desk. Good morning. You seem to be in a good mood today? Hayama Hayato smiled and greeted him, ever the friendly type no matter who he talked to. Yeah, something good happened. Makoto nodded. I see. Sensible as always, Hayama Hayato didn't pry further. Unless Makoto brought it up himself, he wouldn't go digging into others' private matters. Soon, more students arrived. Everyone who greeted Hayama Hayato received a warm response. So warm. Seriously. Makoto idly watched for a bit before noticing that Nakano Itsuki, sitting to his right, kept glancing at him. When he turned his head, Nakano Itsuki quickly averted her gaze. After thinking for a moment, he figured out why. He immediately asked, Did Akika mention me to you last night? Nakano Itsuki was visibly stunned, clearly not expecting him to talk to her. She responded curiously, Yeah, Akika mentioned you during dinner. Are you two friends already? I'd like to be her friend, but I'm worried she might not be willing. Makoto said with a helpless tone. This instantly piqued Nakano Itsuki's curiosity. Why? Makoto looked even more troubled. Because I accidentally found out one of her secrets. I guess she might come talk to me about it today. Eh? Nakano Itsuki's beautiful eyes widened in surprise. Covering her rosy lips, she whispered, She did mention wanting to talk to you. And also to that famous Yukino Shita girl. Then, unable to resist, she leaned closer to Makoto, bringing along her pleasant fragrance. Fushimi-kun, what's Akika's secret? She didn't hide the curiosity in her eyes at all. After all, they were quintuplets who had grown up together. They usually knew each other's secrets pretty well. Now that Akika wanted to secretly discuss something with a guy, of course she was curious. What Nakano Itsuki didn't know was that Makoto had deliberately phrased things that way. Under her expectant gaze, Makoto showed an apologetic smile. Sorry, since Akika didn't agree to let me tell others, I don't dare reveal it for now. So it was such an important secret? Nakano Itsuki's eyes shimmered. She grew even more curious. Out of the corner of his eye, Makoto saw Hayama Hayato still warmly greeting classmates. That guy was a warm-hearted person, while he himself was a highly aggressive master of strategy. So, at this moment, he decided to reveal his trump card. Itsuki, how about this? Once I confirm that she's okay with me sharing it, I'll tell you first. The phrase tell you first carried a bit of ambiguity, a sense of something special. Especially when said in front of the opposite sex. Nakano Itsuki's cheeks flushed slightly. But then she quickly realized. How would he manage to tell her first? He didn't even have her contact information. What should she do? It was so hard to guess. Chapter 6, S-Class Mission. Watch over Katama Itsuki, in the end, didn't have the courage to bring up the topic of exchanging contact information. She was too shy. She wasn't very familiar with Makoto, and he was a boy, so she really couldn't bring herself to speak up. Makoto, however, noticed the subtle changes in her emotions. With his knowledge from the time loop and his experience attempting to win over the five sisters, he could easily guess what she was thinking. But he wasn't in a hurry. After all, today's conversation was initiated using Akika as an excuse. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought up something like tell you first. He had already memorized all the key points from the time loop. Before long, Shizuka entered the classroom. She looked no different from usual, as if the one who had been heartbroken over a failed matchmaking meeting last night wasn't her at all. As a teacher who was both gentle at heart and highly responsible, she would never bring her personal disappointments into the classroom. After a brief homeroom meeting, she officially started the class. Makoto spent the whole morning listening attentively. His entrance exam score had ranked first in the grade, with Yukino coming in second. During the time loop, to avoid being overwhelmed by boredom and frustration, he constantly found things to occupy himself with. Strictly speaking, he had learned decades more knowledge than everyone else. And he had retained all those memories. Born for exams.jpg in this regard, no matter how hard Yukino tried, she would never be able to surpass him academically. Originally, this morning was supposed to be uneventful. Everyone thought it would be another ordinary day. Until lunchtime, when a slender yet beautiful figure appeared at the classroom door, immediately stirring up a commotion. Isn't that Yukino Shita-san? Why would she come to our class? Look at her. She's definitely here to find someone. Oh? Could it be a boy she's looking for? Students tired and hungry after a morning of classes suddenly forgot all about their hunger. Most people loved gossip. Especially when a beauty like Yukino personally came to another class to look for someone. That was even more attention-grabbing. Even Hayama Hayato and the others, who had yet to leave the classroom, looked over. Despite being the focus of so many gazes, Yukino remained composed as always. She paid no attention to others' stares. Her gaze swept swiftly across the classroom, finally locking precisely onto Makoto. Makoto noticed her as well, thinking that, just as he had expected, she had come. However, as Makoto stood up and walked toward the door, before he could even greet Yukino, a familiar female voice called out from the other side of the hallway, Fushimi-kun. Both Makoto and Yukino turned their heads to see Akika approaching with a bright smile. Yukino Shita-san is here too? Perfect. How about we all go to the cafeteria together? I don't mind. Makoto replied as if he had anticipated this. Who asked for your opinion? Yukino felt a little annoyed. She had serious matters to discuss with Makoto. In her mind, a supernatural topic like the time loop definitely couldn't be discussed openly in front of others. But now that Makoto had agreed, she merely gave a slight nod. The three of them left together, and the remaining students were a little disappointed. Clearly, it was gossip worth following, but they could only get half the story. Akika really came, and in such an obvious way too. Itsuki stared toward the classroom door. She was now even more curious about Akika's secret. Hayato, when did Fushimi-kun get to know them? Elsewhere, in the normie squad. Miro Yumiko voiced her confusion. Given Makoto's good looks, she had once invited him to hang out with her group. But he had turned her down. Although the three who left together were famous around the school, Yumiko, as a classmate who saw them daily, had never heard any rumors linking them before. I don't know either. Hayama Hayato replied, his confused expression looking just like a meme. Meanwhile, After Makoto and the two girls picked up their trays and sat down, he was the first to speak. I remember, Yukino Shida, that you usually bring your own lunch. Why aren't you calling me by my name directly? Yukino was puzzled but still answered, I didn't make one today. Makoto immediately understood. Since he usually ate at the cafeteria, Yukino had intentionally skipped making a bento today just to have a chance to talk to him about the time loop at lunch. But Yukino hadn't expected Akika to show up too. Yukino Shida-san, since you also came to talk to Fushimi-kun, why don't you go first? Said Akika, wearing a friendly smile, though secretly observing Yukino carefully. After all, yesterday Yukino had instantly seen through her intentions. Strong and scary. Yukino remained calm. Akika-san, you go first. Why? Because I want to talk to him alone. With just one sentence, the pleasant atmosphere crumbled. No matter how you heard it, it sounded like she was trying to shoo people away. Still smiling, Akika said, then I'll go first. She deliberately paused, her beautiful eyes sparkling as she looked at Makoto. Fushimi-kun, I rushed home yesterday because of something urgent. I hope I didn't interrupt your date. As expected, Akika's level was nowhere near Yukino's. Her probing was far too obvious. Makoto thought to himself. And the next second, Yukino's voice proved him right. Akika-san, if you're wondering whether after you left yesterday we tried to dig into your relationship with that man, I can answer you, yes. Akika's smile froze for a moment. Yukino continued eating elegantly. But it was me who asked. He didn't. Oh, I see. Akika let out a breath of relief. Since she wasn't close with Makoto, she thought that as long as neither of them had investigated her, her secret was safe. But very soon, Makoto dropped a bomb. We know everything. Akika. This time her smile completely stiffened. She instinctively looked toward Yukino, who said casually, we know about you being an actress. Busted. How had it been exposed so quickly? They had only formally spoken once, yet she was already opened up like a mystery box. At this moment, Akika felt very uneasy, and there was a sense of shame that she had came to probe, only to find the others already knew everything. Then Makoto said, don't worry, we won't use your secret as gossip. Really? Akika looked at him sharply. Makoto replied gently, if you don't believe me, I can promise you. And as for her, you can be even more assured. Yukino Shita would never spread your secret around. Because she had no friends at school. Makoto added silently in his heart. Getting Yukino to gossip would be as hard as completing the test class mission. Watching over Katama. Yukino, gripping her chopsticks, frowned slightly, as if sensing Makoto's malicious thought. But there was no evidence. Chapter 7. I've never truly felt happy, perhaps because of Makoto's assurance. Akika quickly regained her usual liveliness. At least on the surface. As a thank you for keeping my secret, let's find a time where I treat you both to a meal. Akika said brightly. Yukino gave her a suspicious glance. Still trying to probe? Nope, I really do want to thank you too. Akika replied with a smile. Yukino, seemingly unable to endure the lies, raised her hand to her forehead, preparing to wield her unique Yukino sharp tongue. But Makoto spoke first. Now it's your turn, Yukino Shida. Yukino let out a questioning hum. Makoto met her gaze openly. Didn't you have something you wanted to talk to me about? Since Akika-san's matter is finished, it's your turn now. Oh? Something's up? Akika's eyes sparkled, and she perked up her ears like a famous meme. Yukino stared at Makoto for 2 seconds, and a thought surfaced. He interrupted my attack because he's trying to pursue Akika? No. If the time loop really existed, he might have already succeeded. Yukino said in a calm tone, are you sure you want me to bring that up here? Is there some juicy news? Akika's spirits lifted. Having had her inner thoughts repeatedly exposed by Yukino, she was actually a little unwilling to accept it, though she didn't show it. Now it looked like she might have the chance to hear the other party's secret. Maybe she could even regain some of the pride she had lost. However, Makoto's answer left her confused. I can answer you this way, Yukino Shida. That matter is real. He was, of course, referring to the time loop. Yukino's expression didn't change. How do you prove it? She was referring to the fact that the dates were operating normally. Makoto pointed at his temple with his chopsticks. You should think more about it. Yukino. Beside them, Akika's initial excitement gradually turned into a dazed look. Were they communicating in code? At that moment, Yukino suddenly smiled, but the smile wasn't warm at all. So, you won't explain any further? Because I've already said everything I can clearly. Makoto replied. That's true, but I still have a lot of questions. Then you need to think even more. Akika, listening to their cryptic conversation, inexplicably felt like these two had real chemistry. Yukino didn't continue the topic. Compared to the hard-to-believe idea of a time loop, she preferred to believe that everything yesterday had been staged. That Makoto had hired people to act it all out. But if it was a script, how could the car accident be explained? It wasn't like he would really find someone to drunk and drive to their death just to trick her, right? After all, she had seen the news herself this morning. The police report matched what Makoto had said. The person involved was addicted to gambling, deeply in debt, and even the crashed car was stolen. But if it wasn't a script, and time had truly moved on to a new day, then how could it be explained? Could he control time? No, that wasn't it. Yesterday, during their conversations, he hadn't shown the slightest sign of lying. Yukino prided herself on her ability to read people. She didn't believe Makoto could act so perfectly that she wouldn't spot a single flaw. Therefore, the final answer could only be, the time loop really existed. Yukino's heartbeat suddenly quickened. As for the possibility of him trying to win her over, she actually didn't care anymore. Based on their interaction so far, she found Makoto very interesting. But to say she liked him? Absolutely impossible. Makoto could guess what Yukino was thinking, but he didn't explain further. Instead, he changed the topic to ease the atmosphere. Akika-san, how's your acting career going? He deliberately lowered his voice. Akika initially didn't want to talk about it, but since he already knew, she said helplessly, it's going okay. I'm still working hard toward it. Makoto said casually, that's good. If one day you become a big star, and you'd be willing to help me complete a short film, that would be my honor. Short film? That word caught the attention of both girls. Makoto said offhandedly, yeah, out of personal interest, I've spent a long time studying photography, and I also learned script writing. He had also studied post-production, directing, even crew management. Eh? That's amazing. Akika, seeing he didn't look like he was lying, couldn't help being a little surprised. Yukino was studying Makoto suspiciously. Makoto didn't mind. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket. Speaking of which, I have a story I think is pretty good. Want to take a look? Can I? Akika asked, very interested. Of course. It's just a draft. Thank you. Akika took it with a curious heart. But once she started reading, she became completely absorbed. Yukino hadn't cared much at first, but as Akika's expression grew increasingly focused, her breathing even turning rapid with excitement, Yukino's curiosity was thoroughly piqued once again. Meanwhile, the mastermind Makoto was leisurely eating his meal. The story was short, and since it was just a draft, Akika finished reading it quickly. Now she was gripping the notebook tightly, her eyes sparkling with excitement. You really wrote this story? There shouldn't be another story like it in the world, right? Makoto replied. Akika's eyes were shining, as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. Yukino immediately understood that look. It was called desire. But Akika ultimately just put down a notebook and continued eating. Yukino finally couldn't resist. May I read it? Of course. Makoto nodded. Yukino thanked him, finished her meal first, wiped her lips with a napkin, and then picked up the notebook to read. A story about a dying grandmother swapping bodies with her granddaughter before passing away? Yukino perked up slightly. The grandmother, using the granddaughter's healthy body, tried to make up for her regrets, then hurried back to the granddaughter's ailing body, intending to return it to her. The plot abruptly cut off there. Yukino's mood didn't change. A touching story about family bonds? She had seen plenty of those. She skimmed to the end. 30 years later, the now grown-up granddaughter singing an ancient nursery rhyme at her parents' memorial. The nursery rhyme had been the deceased grandmother's favorite. The grandmother had never returned the body. Because of the temptation of youth and health, she had caused her granddaughter's death. In an instant, Yukino froze. She instinctively looked at Makoto, only to find him looking back at her. Clearly, he had long expected her reaction. Yukino took a deep breath, closed the notebook, and handed it back. She said softly, "That's a rather good ending. Without it, it would have been a mediocre story." Her gaze toward Makoto changed. It became complicated. Now she understood Akika's earlier reaction. A small-time actress had discovered a treasure of a story. No wonder she had felt such yearning. This guy had done it on purpose, pulling both their curiosities closer to him. Yukino thought confidently. I did do it on purpose. Makoto thought to himself. A single story had captivated two girls he intended to win over. That's called a double win. Meaning, I won twice. After the meal, the three of them put away their trays. Akika seized the chance to ask, "Are you two free today? Since I have nothing to do tonight, why don't I treat you to dinner?" Yukino declined. "Sorry, I need to go to the bookstore to buy some books." Makoto said, sounding sentimental, "You still love reading so much?" Yukino raised an eyebrow slightly. Was he reminding her again that the time loop was real? She replied unhurriedly, because reading gives me satisfaction and happiness. Something you should have already known, right? Yukino was testing him. Makoto replied lightly, probably. What kind of answer was that? Yukino's modest chest rose and fell slowly. Just like the story you wrote. You must have spent a long time learning how to write scripts, and you also studied photography. If it took a long time, that means you must have felt happiness and satisfaction during the process, right? I never once felt happy learning script writing. Makoto said. What a cruel grandmama. Chapter 8. However, I refused during the afternoon classes. Yukino found herself unusually distracted. I never once felt happy learning script writing. When Makoto had said that, she could tell he wasn't lying. When she asked him why, he answered. Everything is repeated every day. The longer it goes on, the more frustrating it becomes. I had to spend a lot of time learning new things, just to distract myself. Those words had left a deep impression on her. At the same time, it further confirmed that the time loop was real. Yukino had even imagined it herself, every day the same, everyone around acting like NPCs who reset overnight. How long had he endured that alone? Just thinking about it was terrifying. Akiko had been present when Makoto said that. Yukino could tell Akiko didn't quite understand. She had a lot of questions but ended up suppressing them. On the surface she seemed sunny and gentle, but underneath, she had a little cunning and calculation. Just a little, though. Yukino pushed Akiko to the back of her mind. She knew very clearly, right now, her mind was full of Makoto. It wasn't love. It was her thirst for knowledge burning brightly. I'm really very interested in you, Yukino said to herself. Meanwhile, Makoto was attending art class. Because of their conversation that morning, Mayu was paying special attention to him. As a result, the very gentle-natured teacher discovered that Makoto hadn't lied. His drawing skills were truly exceptional. Even better than her own. She stood behind Makoto and watched for quite a while before reaching this conclusion. This inevitably piqued her curiosity. For a high school student to have such impressive drawing skills, he must have started practicing from a young age. The beautiful teacher found herself a little distracted. Makoto had long noticed this scene. To avoid disturbing other students, he picked up a prepared pen and paper, wrote a line, and handed it over. Mayu took it curiously and saw the words, I wasn't lying, was I? A smile appeared in her eyes as she wrote back, have you been studying art for a long time? Makoto, guess. Mayu, you shouldn't talk to your teacher like that. Makoto, it's a long story. Let's find another time to talk about it. Mayu was about to write a reply but suddenly remembered something. Wasn't she passing notes with a student during class time? She snapped back to her senses and realized many students around were sneaking glances at them, clearly puzzled by her behavior. Just as she blushed in embarrassment, Makoto suddenly whispered, Matsuke-sensei, maybe I should ask you for guidance another time. I feel like this might disturb the class. Mayu froze. He was helping her out of the situation. The curious students around them suddenly understood. So he was asking the teacher for advice. No wonder they were writing and drawing. He probably didn't want to disturb others. With their curiosity satisfied, the students lost interest and stopped sneaking looks. Suppressing her embarrassment, Mayu lifted her chin and said softly, it's all right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I understand. This little incident was completely resolved. Mayu returned the paper and pen. As she bent down, a waft of her fragrance enveloped Makoto, flooding his senses. We'll talk after school, she whispered by Makoto's ear. He could even feel the warm breath from her lips gently brushing against his ear. For members of the opposite sex, this was an obviously flirtatious gesture. Yet Mayu didn't find it strange. They lived in the same apartment building, and he was her student. And had just helped her out of a tight spot. Her affection for him was steadily growing. More importantly, Makoto's drawing skills had completely piqued her curiosity. Just like how supernatural phenomena like time loops attracted Yukino. After school, Makoto had just arrived at the schoolyard when Hayato and his cheerful group of friends approached him. My family gave me some movie tickets. I happen to have an extra one. Want to come along? Hayato smiled warmly as he extended the invitation. Makoto was puzzled. He wasn't particularly close to Hayato, so it was odd that he would seek him out after school and invite him to a movie. Then he noticed Yumeko and the others watching him nearby and realized. As expected, it must have been their idea for Hayato to invite him. The sunny and handsome boy who belonged to everyone. Not to just one person. That was Hayama Hayato. Makoto was about to reply when a familiar female voice called out, Fushimi-kun. He turned and saw Akiko waving at him near the school gate, surrounded by 4 other beautiful girls. Makoto waved back and said to Hayato, sorry, I already have plans today. No worries. Maybe next time. Hayato showed no sign of disappointment, clearly confirming Makoto's guess. As Makoto quickened his pace toward the gate, Ayama turned back to Yumiko and the others with a helpless smile. See? I told you he might be busy lately. All 5 of them are waiting for him. Could he really be dating Akika? But then what about Yuki no Shida? Someone speculated enviously. Hayato gently reminded, it's better not to gossip about people's private matters, especially topics that could easily spread rumors. Oh, sorry. Yumiko couldn't help but ask, are you too close? We're not really. But the soccer club would love to have him. No wonder you're always so proactive around him. Someone who didn't know better might think you had a crush on him. Yumiko teased. She had figured it out. Hayato, being part of the soccer club, wanted to recruit Makoto to boost the club's reputation. Meanwhile, Makoto reached the school gate and greeted Akika first, then the other 4. The 5 sisters reacted differently. Akika beamed brightly, Nino stared at him, her beautiful eyes sparkling. Miku and Yotsuba looked curious. Itsuki pursed her lips, staying calm while desperately suppressing her curiosity about Akika's secret. Are you sure you don't want to let me treat you to a meal today? I really have time today. Akika said as soon as she opened her mouth, surprising the 4 girls beside her. 4 pairs of eyes immediately locked onto Makoto and Akika. Especially Nino, who looked like she wanted to say something but held back. If she were more familiar with Makoto, she probably would have interrogated Akika already. Makoto put on a thoughtful expression. You invited me in front of your sisters to lower the chances of me refusing, didn't you? Eh? You saw through me? Akika chuckled, showing no sign of embarrassment. It was pretty easy to guess. If I refused you in front of your sisters, it'd be a little embarrassing. So, does that mean you're saying yes? Sorry, but I'll have to refuse. Akika froze. Makoto pointed back toward the school building. I should have clarified earlier. I have plans with Matsuke's sensei today. We'll have to reschedule the meal. The 5 sisters instinctively turned around. And sure enough, not far away, they spotted Mayu walking alongside Shizuka. Next time then. Akika said with a smile. Makoto asked, were you planning to drag me along to invite Yuki no Shida too if I agreed? Akika was truly shocked. Was I that obvious? Not really. It's just that I figured you out during the time loop. Makoto didn't explain. Another day. I'll help you invite Yuki no Shida. Then it's a promise. We'll be heading home now. See you tomorrow. Before leaving, Akika openly got Makoto's contact information. This move once again astonished the other 4 girls. After walking a short distance from school, Nino couldn't hold back. Akika, you and this famous Fushimi-kun. The others all looked on eagerly. Being able to directly ask for contact information clearly wasn't just a normal classmate relationship. This called for a serious interrogation. Akika remained composed. I guess we're friends now. Except for Itsuki, who had already suspected as much, the other 3 showed looks of disbelief. Nino said suspiciously, you've never had a male friend since we were little. Are you this interested because Fushimi-kun fits your type? I am not. Don't slander me. Nino blushed. Although, in her heart, she had secretly judged that Makoto's appearance was very much her type. Very much her type. Alright, I know you're all dying to hear about him. I don't know that much, but I'll tell you what I can. Akika laughed mischievously, very satisfied with Nino's reaction. She glanced back at Makoto still standing at the school gate and thought of the words he had said at noon. He had so many intriguing secrets. No wonder Yukino was so curious about him. She wanted to be part of their encrypted conversations too. To have microphone privileges. Just as she looked back, Akika noticed that Itsuki was also sneaking glances. Huh? What's going on here? Chapter 9. Is it that hard to admit you're especially concerned? Makoto watched the Nakano quintuplets leave, and casually asked the system in his mind, System, why aren't there any related tasks for Nino and the others? Because I am an internship system, and the number of tasks I can assign at one time is limited, you're really making things hard for me. He replied. Why? If you could keep assigning tasks to me, I'd be able to finish my internship for you sooner. In other words, you're affecting your own progress. Stop complaining, all the internship tasks are up to you now. After teasing the system, Makoto noticed that Shizuka and Mayu were walking over. Fushimi-san, sorry to keep you waiting. Mayu seemed a bit happy. Shizuka, curious, asked, did you two arrange to meet? Yeah, I need to ask him about something, and it just so happens that we live in the same apartment building. I see, well, I won't disturb you then. Shizuka smiled at Makoto and left. Mayu and Makoto walked home together. Just as she was about to ask about his drawing skills, he spoke first. Matsuke's sensei, Are you going grocery shopping today? Yeah, my house is out of ingredients. How about we go together? You're going to cook too? Not just that. What I mean is, we could have dinner together. Makoto said as he glanced at Mayu, who looked a little surprised, and added, my cooking skills are pretty good too. How good? Mayu instinctively asked. It's probably not just 3 or 4 stories high. That's the first time I've heard that. Alright, it's settled then. Hearing Makoto speak with such confidence, Mayu's curiosity was once again piqued. The atmosphere of their conversation was quite pleasant, and Mayu's sweet voice alone was enough to lift anyone's spirits. Her occasional surprised expressions only made her even cuter. Makoto even thought that if he had a favorability system, he would surely hear the favorability +1 prompt by now. And it would be a continuous one. He remembered a post he had seen online. How much effort does a man have to put in to fill the heart of a woman who has never been in a relationship? The answer is, just a little is enough. Just a little is enough to fill her up and receive a passionate response in return. The two of them arrived at the supermarket to pick out ingredients. Makoto casually said, let's cook dinner together. Matsuke-sensei can make a dish you're good at. Mayu smiled and said, didn't you say your cooking skills are very high? I thought you were going to take over dinner. Because I've never tasted Matsuke-sensei's cooking, I'm looking forward to it. Got it, then we'll cook together. The gentle and sweet Mayu was now noticeably more enthusiastic. It was their first time having dinner together, so of course, he wanted her to feel involved. Even if she wasn't very good at cooking, as long as she said, I'm looking forward to it, she would be filled with the motivation and enthusiasm to try. As for whether her cooking would be good or not, that didn't matter much. What mattered was that a woman was willing to cook for a man, which meant she could be courted. These were the insights Makoto had gathered from his time loops. The two of them picked out ingredients and chatted happily. Mayu asked him about his relationship with the Nakano quintuplets. This was because she had seen the scene outside the school gate earlier. Makoto casually said, I'm only really close to Akika, and that's because I wrote a short story she really liked. A short story? Mayu clearly became interested, unconsciously leaning closer to him. If she leaned just a little more, her chest would touch Makoto's arm. This clearly showed that she no longer had any defenses up around him. Yeah, just a little story I think is okay. Makoto pulled out the little notebook. Mayu quickly took it and started reading seriously. Makoto didn't disturb her, continuing to pick out meat. His phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. He picked it up and saw a message from Yukino. Yukino, do you still have any stories suitable for adaptation like the one before? No pleasantries, just getting straight to the point, showing she cared. Makoto, I have some. I probably have 9 stories suitable for adaptation. 9? On the other end, Yukino leaned back in her chair, her beautiful eyes glinting. Ever since she got home, she had been thinking. Since the time loop was real, Makoto studying photography and scriptwriting probably wasn't just to distract himself from his frustration. Nakano Akika. That girl was an actress. Makoto didn't hide his intentions regarding his pursuit. Yukino immediately concluded that Makoto must have studied these things to prepare for courting Akika. In that case, what about his method of courting her? Yukino spent the rest of the time thinking about this question after returning home. Most importantly, she wanted to know more. It was the first time encountering such a supernatural phenomenon, and if she couldn't satisfy her curiosity, it would be a great loss. Yukino quickly typed a message. Didn't Akika say she wanted to invite us for dinner? I don't have her contact info. You can pick a time. After sending the message, her chest, which wasn't very curvy, slowly rose and fell. She was inexplicably a bit nervous. Because her intentions were a little too obvious. But her curiosity was really very strong. She stared at her phone, waiting until 10 seconds after sending the message, when Makoto replied. And it was Makoto's reply that immediately made her blush. Why do you have to beat around the bush? Is it that hard to admit you care a lot? Yukino nearly blushed. Then Makoto sent another message. If you want to know more about the time loop, you can just ask me directly. Yukino, would you tell me directly? Makoto, no, Yukino. This guy, he's a bit mean. Yukino took a deep breath, feeling her blood pressure rising. This time, she decided to be direct. You studied photography and scriptwriting to court Akika, right? Makoto, I thought I made it clear. I have to find things to distract myself, Yukino, so, you don't have Akika's contact info yet? Makoto, of course I do. Yukino was about to strike back, but before she could, she saw Makoto send another message. The reason I have Akika's contact info so quickly is that she just happens to be suitable to appear in my friend list, Yukino? Makoto sent another message. You too. Yukino fell silent. She put her phone down, deciding not to bother with that guy for now. She picked up a book to calm down. Yukino read, but then that sentence popped into her mind, is it that hard to admit you care a lot? And then, that one, you too. She could almost picture Makoto's mischievous grin when he sent that message. Great, she couldn't focus on her book anymore. Makoto was indeed smiling. It was to be expected that Yukino would care so much. A curious and intelligent girl like her, when she encountered a supernatural phenomenon, would naturally be very interested. And he had told her many things without fully explaining everything. Riddles were the most annoying. Just as Yukino cared about him, he cared about this girl. What mattered most to him was Yukino's beautiful legs. They already looked so beautiful, and they must feel wonderful to the touch. Carrying her would be even better. Stop. Makoto cleared his thoughts. At this point, Mayu leaned in, her face glowing with excitement. I finished reading. This story is great. Right? I think it's pretty good too. Makoto took the notebook back. It's more than just good. I can already picture the ending. It really surprised me earlier. Thanks for the compliment. After finishing their grocery shopping, the two were still talking about the story. It was clear that Mayu really enjoyed the twist. At that moment, Makoto's attention was caught by a slender figure walking out of a bookstore ahead. And coincidentally, the girl looked over at him. Their gazes met, and she showed a surprised look. Her name was Kasumijoka Utaha. Chapter 10. This is the one you can't resist looking at. It's Kasumijoka. Mayu also noticed Utaha. Before Makoto could speak, she gently waved at the black stockings girl. Kasumijoka-san, did you come out just to buy books? Hello, Matsuke-sensei. I just happened to be passing by the bookstore. Utaha was very polite. Mayu had excellent relationships at school, both with boys and girls, and everyone held her in very high regard. She herself admitted that, facing such a gentle, petite, and cute beauty of a teacher, she too felt quite favorable towards her. As for the person next to her, Utaha naturally recognized him and greeted him normally, Fushimi-san. Kasumijoka-senpai. Makoto didn't examine her too closely, as he had already admired her plenty during the time loops. But if someone were to ask if the black stockings senpai smelled nice, the answer would definitely be yes. Her figure was tall and full, with perfect curves in all the right places. Moreover, she possessed a mature woman's waist-to-hip ratio. Those long legs, wrapped in 50D black stockings, reflected a captivating sheen under the bright lights, with the lines tapering gracefully from her ankles. Speaking of which, you two might have something in common. Mayu suddenly spoke up. This caused both Makoto and Utaha to look at her in confusion. Makoto recalled something Yukino had said before, most of the time, when someone says speaking of which, it's something premeditated. So is this situation the same? Under the gaze of both Makoto and Utaha, Mayu's smile remained as gentle as ever. I just remembered, Kasumijoka-san really likes to read books. Utaha appeared even more confused, so, Fushimi-san also likes to read books? Probably, if he didn't have a vast amount of knowledge, he couldn't write such amazing stories. Write stories? A hint of interest appeared in Utaha's red eyes. Makoto suddenly realized. He now knew what Mayu was planning to do. This situation was indeed beyond his expectations. Mayu took a special glance at Makoto, and seeing that he had no objections, she answered, Fushimi-san wrote a very interesting story. He said it might be adapted into a script in the future. I just remembered that Kasumijoka-san also likes to read books, and thought you two might have a lot to talk about. She praised the story twice, which piqued Utaha's interest. Fushimi-san, is that true? Makoto nodded. I suppose this story was something I wrote on a whim. Even if it was on a whim, that's still quite an impressive talent for a high school student. Utaha thought about some of her own experiences. She then glanced at the time. I need to head back for dinner now. If you're free tomorrow, Fushimi-san, could you show me your story? Just as Makoto was about to answer, Mayu softly spoke up from the side. Why don't you exchange contact information? That way you can contact each other anytime. Utaha paused for a moment and then simply took out her phone. Once they exchanged contact information, Utaha took the initiative to say her goodbyes. Makoto glanced at the alluring figure of the black stockings girl before turning to Mayu and saying, thank you. Huh? You knew? Mayu's surprised expression was quite cute. Makoto smiled. If I couldn't figure that out, I'd be pretty dull. Mayu's cheeks reddened slightly. I thought I was being subtle. Her voice softened. Kasumijoka-san is an excellent student, both in terms of academics and character. She has been outstanding since the beginning of her school days. For high school students like you, it's very helpful to meet talented friends before university or entering society. It will greatly benefit your life in the future. As she spoke, she smiled a little sheepishly. This is just my personal life advice. I wasn't able to make many talented friends in high school, so now I'm just an ordinary teacher. Makoto said sincerely, actually, you're not ordinary at all. Really? At least, to me, you're quite impressive. Thank you. Mayu was a good woman. Makoto knew this from the time loops. She clearly had a very high opinion of him right now. That's why, when she ran into Utaha earlier, she immediately thought of helping Makoto. Utaha probably could guess, but she didn't refuse. Maybe it was because of Mayu's good reputation, which made her unwilling to refuse, or perhaps her curiosity was piqued. She wanted to see whether the talented Makoto was truly as remarkable as he claimed. Dinner was made at Mayu's house. Her home wasn't large, but it was neat and bright, obviously well maintained. Makoto's cooking skills were top-notch. Over the years in the time loop, he had managed to pick up many secret recipes from various chefs. However, today, he only made a few home-style dishes, all of which were flawless in taste. Maya made teriyaki chicken legs, thinking that high school students should eat more meat since they were still growing. After a pleasant dinner, Makoto offered to help wash the dishes. Mayu couldn't refuse and decided to sit for a while before taking a shower. She didn't even think about whether it would be inappropriate to shower with a man at home. When Makoto returned after washing the dishes, the living room was empty, but there was the sound of water coming from the bathroom. It sounded like the bathtub was being filled with water. Makoto didn't pay much attention. He sat on the sofa, changed the channel, and planned to find a good TV show. Just then, there was a dull thud from the bathroom, followed by the sound of rushing water and Mayu's surprised exclamation. What happened? Makoto stood up and walked to the bathroom door, asking, and just as he did, the bathroom door opened, and a soaking wet Mayu rushed out. She was still wearing the same clothes, but they were completely soaked. Her neatly styled hair was now damp and messy, and her light-colored top clung tightly to her body, making the fabric somewhat see-through, revealing her pink underwear underneath. Because she was wet, her already perfect figure looked even more alluring at this moment. The bathroom's water pipe burst suddenly. Mayu said, sounding a little flustered. Then she noticed that Makoto was looking at her. She lowered her head and glanced at herself. Her face flushed red, and she instinctively covered her chest, weakly saying, "Please don't look, I'll get embarrassed." This is the kind of thing you can't resist looking at, thumbs up. In this situation, the automatic reaction to glance was inevitable. Makoto casually said, "Matsuke-sensei, go grab a towel, I'll go home and get some tools." Tools? Mayu was momentarily distracted. You can fix pipes. Not only can I fix pipes, but I can also do electrical work and clear clogged drains. With so much time, I've learned a lot. Makoto didn't explain much, turning and heading back to his room. He returned with a toolbox, and Mayu was standing there with a towel, looking at him expectantly, completely forgetting to cover her body. Makoto didn't look around, and after nearly 15 minutes, he finally fixed the bathroom. His own hair and clothes were also quite wet. Seeing this, Mayu casually handed him her towel, which smelled of her fragrant hair. "Thanks." Makoto wiped his hair and said, "It's all fixed now. I'll go change into some dry clothes. You should too, or you'll catch a cold." "Thank you." Mayu's eyes sparkled as she looked at him. As she stared, her gaze naturally drifted down to Makoto. His clothes were also soaked, and his tall, strong build was clearly visible to her. Mayu's face turned even redder. "If you keep staring, I'll start charging you," Makoto teased. Mayu quickly shifted her gaze away, muttering, "You were looking at me earlier too." She said that, but inside, she felt extremely embarrassed. If she kept looking, she suspected she might not be able to sleep tonight. And if she couldn't sleep, she'd probably end up humming softly. With how many things he can do, Mc can be Johnny Sins now lol. Chapter 11, Are you using this to test the cadre? By all accounts, it was already 7 p.m., and Mayu had finished fixing the bathroom. Makoto could have said his goodbyes. But before he could go back to change his clothes, Mayu asked him to wait a little longer. So, after Makoto took a shower and returned home, he found that Mayu hadn't locked the door. Is she really this trusting of me? Makoto thought to himself as he changed his shoes and entered the living room. The bathroom door just happened to open, and Mayu, wrapped only in a towel and drying her hair, stepped out. "You came back so quickly," Mayu remarked, and then realized her outfit was a little too revealing, causing her face to turn red. Makoto's automatic focus kicked in again. Of course, Mayu noticed his gaze. To cover her embarrassment, she tried to stay calm and said, "Stop looking, okay? I'm not young anymore. You must be staring at me like this because you're hoping to see me make a fool of myself, right?" Makoto shook his head. "That's definitely not it." Mayu's cheeks grew even redder as she pretended to casually dry her hair. "Really? But I'm much older than you. I feel like you must just want to see me embarrassed, so you can make fun of me. She added with a playful tone, you did that earlier. Makoto replied, but right now, I'm actually kind of excited. Mayu's face turned crimson as she quickly ran off. With a simple basic attack, Makoto had torn through her defenses, which were delicate and fragile. How could he say something like that? In the bedroom, Mayu, with her face burning, removed the towel and stared at her smooth, pale skin in the mirror, her mind momentarily wandering. Wait, he must have been joking. I'm much older than him. He must like girls like Yukino Shida, who are so beautiful. Mayu's face was flushed as she tried to stay calm in her mind, but as soon as she recalled Makoto's words. But right now, I'm actually kind of excited. Her thoughts instantly became disarrayed. After changing into her pajamas, she patted her face in the mirror to make sure her expression was back to normal before finally daring to open the door. Makoto was already watching a TV show. Seeing that he wasn't teasing her anymore, Mayu sighed in relief and sat down beside him. Thank you so much tonight. If you hadn't helped, I wouldn't have known if anyone would came to fix it so late. It was no trouble. Makoto said, clearly feeling surrounded by her pleasant fragrance. Still, I want to thank you. If you're free tomorrow, why don't you come over to my place for dinner? I'll cook this time. Mayu said happily, her eyes entirely focused on Makoto, her gaze full of anticipation. If I have time, I'll definitely come. Makoto replied. Then it's a deal. Mayu was even more pleased. Usually, she went home alone. To say she wasn't lonely would be a lie. Although she occasionally ate with or went shopping with Shizuka, the other person had their own things to do and couldn't always stay with her. Now that there was a man who treated her so well, willing to come over and have dinner with her, she was genuinely happy. At that moment, the TV show featured a scene where the male and female leads were on a date in the park. After some sweet interactions, the female lead invited the male lead to lie on her lap, and he shyly complied. It's a heart-shaped lap pillow. Mayu said, captivated by the scene. Makoto nodded in agreement. Yeah, a lap pillow must be very comfortable. Mayu was taken aback, then turned to him with a slightly flushed face. Fushimi-kun, you're so amazing. Haven't you ever experienced a lap pillow before? Makoto answered, no. And then he added in his mind, except for those in the time loop. Mayu's eyes shimmered. A few seconds later, she suddenly adjusted her posture, then beckoned to Makoto with a soft voice. If it's you, Fushimi-kun, I can give you a lap pillow as a reward. Her cheeks were flushed with two charming red spots, and her eyes were full of emotions. Consider it my way of thanking you. Are you really using this to test the cadre? Makoto wasn't one to be overly cautious. He leaned back and lay down on Mayu's ample lap. For a brief moment, her body tensed up, but she quickly relaxed. As soon as Makoto lay down, the alluring fragrance around him completely enveloped him. The weather wasn't cold, and Mayu's pajama pants weren't thick. Through the thin fabric, Makoto could even feel the elasticity of her thigh. So good, Makoto murmured. At first a little tense, Mayu was momentarily stunned, but then her gaze softened. You did so much today, you must be a little tired, right? High school students are full of energy. Don't underestimate me, Matsuke's sensei. Hee. What a strong-willed remark from a young man. Mayu smiled sweetly, and her soft, fair hand lifted up. Would you like me to give you a massage? Can you do a massage? Makoto opened his eyes, which he had just closed. What a ridiculous angle. Mayu already had a voluptuous figure, and now that he was lying down and looking up, the first thing he saw was her incredibly well-endowed upper body. From this angle, it was impossible for him to turn off the auto-aim, even if he wanted to. I don't know how, but I've seen something like this on TV before. Mayu was being honest. Makoto, then I'll leave it to you. And with that, Mayu's small hand landed on his temples. She had spoken the truth earlier. She really didn't know how to give massages. Her technique was clumsy and completely unskilled, purely based on intuition. Makoto didn't mind such a small thing and closed his eyes for a little nap. Once his eyes were closed, Mayu stopped restraining her gaze and let her eyes sweep across his face. The more she looked, the more entranced she became, until she accidentally applied too much pressure. Makoto snapped his eyes open. Sorry, I zoned out just now. Mayu blushed, thinking how embarrassing she was. Makoto saw how quickly she apologized and was suddenly reminded of that meme that went viral years ago. When you apologize, you have to show your breast. He couldn't help but chuckle. It's nothing. What are you laughing at? Mayu noticed. Oh, just something I saw online. What was it? Can you tell me? I could, but I'm worried you'll get the wrong idea. Hearing that only made Mayu more curious. She unconsciously leaned forward, tightening her waist muscles. The fabric of her pajamas, now stretched, nearly brushed Makoto's face. I really want to know, she said, staring into his eyes. Makoto thought to himself, why are you stealing Chitandairu's lines? But since she was so curious, he went ahead and said it. As expected, Mayu blushed instantly and grumbled, how could you say something like that to me? You asked me to, Makoto said, holding back a laugh. Mayu fell silent, her gaze drifting off as if lost in thought. Then she continued massaging Makoto's head, and the two chatted about trivial school matters. At 7:40 p.m., Makoto stood up to leave. But just as he reached the entrance and hadn't yet changed his shoes, a soft voice called out from behind, wait a moment. Makoto turned around and saw the beautiful teacher standing before him, face flushed red, her eyes shy, gently lifting her pajamas with her fingers until her arm held the fabric in place. Blushing, she spoke in her soft voice, I'm apologizing. In that instant, Makoto felt like he was right back to his earlier dilemma, you're using this to test a cadre? But this time, his thoughts were, who could possibly pass this kind of test? That night, Makoto couldn't sleep at all. He already knew Mayu's personality well from the time loops, but tonight's actions had completely caught him off guard. Indulgent, accommodating, tolerant, accepting. These were all traits of Matsuke's Mayu. As the first male she had fully warmed up to, all it took was a single joke. And she was willing to turn that joke into reality. What do you even call that? A gift? A blessing? If this were a cultivation world, having a beautiful teacher who was so indulgent. Makoto figured he might have ascended straight to the golden core stage by now. Deep into the night, the system notification suddenly popped up. Congratulations, host. You have completed the task. You are now the person Matsuke's Mayu cares about the most among the opposite sex. Reward, Mayu's Saint Aura. With this aura, everyone will have a good impression of you. Even complete strangers will have a significantly higher starting favorability, so that's what the aura does. Makoto wasn't too surprised. As for why the task was suddenly completed, he guessed that Mayu couldn't sleep either, probably thinking back over everything that happened. She might even be rolling around in bed, holding her phone under the covers, giggling like a fool. This aura would be incredibly useful to him. Whether it was for future time loops or for daily life in regular time, it would help a lot. With it, he could complete tasks more efficiently. Host, please continue to work hard. My internship evaluation depends entirely on you, full effort guaranteed. Although you've been doing great, the system still wants to ask. Are you really sure you can complete the other 2 beginner missions to win over the beautiful older girls? I can't unlock more rewards for you until all the newbie tasks are done, no problem. I'll take care of Mrs. Yukino Shida. System. Mayu-sensei falls too fast Lamau. Chapter 12, Another Expert. The next morning, Makoto and Mayu, who lived in the same apartment building, ran into each other at the door. Good morning, Fushimi-kun. Mayu's cheeks were slightly flushed, but she still greeted him softly. Good morning, Matsuke's sensei. Makoto replied with a smile. It was obvious that last night's events were still affecting her. She looked a little shy. Given how long this shyness buff had lasted, it suggested that Mayu probably had trouble falling asleep last night, and might have ended up becoming a piano player in the canyon. In gaming terms, a canyon pianist smashes their keyboard and flames people. But Mayu's version was. On the way to school, Makoto noticed that Mayu stole glances at him several times, looking hesitant. So he asked, what is it? Mayu blinked, I just feel like. Something about you seems different. Different? I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe. A very familiar feeling? After saying this, Mayu realized how strange it sounded. Her face turned red as she waved her hands quickly, maybe it's just my imagination. Please don't mind it. It's fine. That kind of comment is basically a compliment. I'm happy to hear it. Makoto said with a grin. He knew full well this was the effect of Mayu's halo. Upon arriving at school, the two parted ways, and Makoto headed into his classroom. Morning, Fushimi-kun. A few classmates who had talked to him before greeted him, and he returned their greetings one by one. Then he noticed a male student in front of him slouched over his desk, seemingly dozing off. His body stayed still, but his arms were constantly moving. Changing his angle, Makoto saw that the guy was watching short videos on his phone, which had a box of milk with a straw stuck in it sitting next to it. That student must have sensed someone watching him. He looked left and right, then turned his head. Only to meet Makoto's gaze directly. He immediately gave an awkward smile. Makoto smiled too and lowered his voice, bringing milk to class is against the rules, but don't worry. No one's going to find out. Thanks. The student quickly said. Then, as if remembering something, he pulled out another carton of milk from his drawer and whispered, Want one? No thanks. I already had my fill last night. As for what happened last night, Makoto could only think, glorious. And just thinking about it brought vivid images to his mind, Mayu holding up her sleepwear with her arms, her cheeks flushed, watery eyes staring at him, shy yet alluring. To put it in plain terms, what a dreamboat of a moment. After the first 2 morning classes, Makoto noticed that Itsuki occasionally glanced his way. Of course, he didn't mind. It was easy to guess. She was probably still curious about Akika's secret. They weren't close yet, so even if she wanted to ask, she was probably too embarrassed to bring it up. Hayato came over during the break between classes. Makoto assumed he was sent by Yumiko and the others to invite him again, but Hayato's first words were, "Fushimi, interested in joining the soccer club?" "Sorry, I'm planning to start a club of my own." Makoto declined. Hayato wasn't surprised and casually asked, "What kind of club?" "What do you think about a film club?" "Sounds good, but the school already has one." "Then I'll start a new film club." "Huh?" Faced with Hayato's confused look, Makoto laughed, "Just kidding. The club name I have in mind is a bit odd, so I'll keep it to myself for now." Sensing the mood, Hayato didn't press the issue. As he turned to leave, he suddenly paused and hesitated. "If you're ever short on people, just let me know." "You'll help me make up the numbers?" Makoto asked. "If it helps you out, I don't mind." "Then I'll thank you in advance." After their conversation, Hayato returned to Yumiko's side, scratching his head in confusion. "That was weird." "What was it?" Yumiko asked, curious. Hayato thought for 2 seconds, then shook his head with a smile. "It's nothing. I just feel like Fushimi is easier to talk to than before. I couldn't help it. When he said he wanted to start a club, I offered to help without thinking." Yumiko shot him a sideways glance. "You're not secretly crushing on him, are you?" Hayato gave a helpless smile. "Don't say weird things like that." Makoto withdrew his gaze from the two and thought to himself, this halo really is working wonders. Even though the FW system's excuse of getting lost was kind of abstract, the rewards were definitely worth the effort. He turned his head and caught Itsuki sneaking glances at him again. She was caught off guard for the second time, and their eyes met. Her face turned awkward. But then Makoto said, "Did Akika talk about us after going home yesterday?" She quietly exhaled in relief, and the awkwardness faded a bit. "Yeah. Akika said she's already decided to treat you and Yukino Shita-san to a meal. Oh, and she also complained that Yukino Shita-san seems hard to get along with, which is giving her a bit of a headache." As soon as the words left her mouth, she froze. "Huh? Why did I just blurt all that out so clearly?" She looked at Makoto's face and, for some reason, felt he had a strong sense of approachability. That inexplicable affinity made her spill everything she knew as soon as she opened her mouth. Yukino Shita really isn't easy to get along with, so it's understandable for her to say that. Makoto said, pretending not to notice her reaction. Itsuki came back to her senses and asked softly, Fushimi-kun, about Akika's secret. I haven't gotten her permission yet." "Oh." Itsuki bit her lip. She actually wanted to ask, "How did you manage to tell me Akika's secret right away?" In translation, "I want to exchange contact info." That strange sense of warmth Makoto gave off today was exactly what solidified her resolve to ask for his contact. But as a girl, her natural reserve made it hard to say it outright. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly and silently blamed herself. Now's the time to make a move. Makoto watched the changes in the girl's expression and raised his hand to tap his forehead, muttering to himself, "I can't believe I forgot about that." "Eh?" Itsuki blinked in surprise. Then she saw Makoto smile sheepishly. "I said I'd tell you as soon as I knew, but I just realized. I don't even have your contact info." Itsuki felt a wave of joy in her chest, and the self-criticism she had just harbored disappeared entirely. She smiled involuntarily. "You just realize that now?" Makoto rubbed his temples. "There's just been a lot going on lately. I clearly said I'd let you know, but I forgot the most important part. It's kind of embarrassing, thinking about it." "It's okay. Everyone forgets things sometimes." Itsuki smiled gently. A beautiful smile. She smiled because Makoto's slow realization was kind of endearing, and also because he brought it up himself, making it easy for her to go along and say yes. No wonder he became friends with Akika so quickly. He had a really pleasant personality. And he was also ranked number 1 in the grade. Admiration of a struggling student for a top student got JPG. Even though she was the 5th sister in the family, she always paid close attention to her older sister's affairs. That's why she often took on the role of the mother figure, trying to maintain harmony between the siblings. She was meticulous and a little inflexible. In her eyes, Akika's secret must be very special and important. Otherwise, Makoto wouldn't take it so seriously, insisting on getting Akika's permission before telling her. That only deepened her curiosity and concern. She was worried that this special secret might lead to unexpected trouble. And just now, this little episode had easily brought the two of them closer. Itsuki successfully got Makoto's contact information, and she was quietly happy about it. Though she didn't really understand why she was so happy. That afternoon, neither Yukino nor Geiko came looking for Makoto. He originally planned to eat lunch alone in the cafeteria, but just as he stepped out of the classroom, a tall, curvy girl approached. With every step she took, she drew the attention of surrounding students. Of course. After all, she was Kazumijouka Utaha, a second-year student. A senpai, and a famously beautiful one at that, suddenly showing up in the first-year area at lunchtime with a clear purpose of looking for someone. It was impossible not to draw attention. Makoto stopped where he stood. The first-year boys stood at attention. His classmates also stopped in their tracks, eyes fixed on the black-stockinged senpai as she walked closer and closer. They couldn't help but recall the earlier scene when Yukino and Akiko had came to find him. The boys looked at Makoto, then at Utaha, waves of envy and jealousy surging in their hearts. At that moment, only one thought remained in their minds: there's another boss? Chapter 13, You're seriously such a turn-off. Utaha's current mood was a bit complicated. Yesterday, she happened to run into Mayu and Makoto on the street. At the suggestion of that gentle teacher, she exchanged contact info with a boy for the first time. She had realized back then that Mayu was trying to help Makoto. And the reason she didn't refuse was, on one hand, because Mayu gave off such a good impression that it was hard to say no. On the other hand, it was because she had become interested in the story Makoto had written. Originally, that incident yesterday had left no lasting impact on her. But this morning, she recalled that encounter for some reason and found herself developing a good impression of Makoto. Up until then, her understanding of him came only from idle gossip among classmates. The more she thought about it, the more she felt, maybe I should go talk to him? With that thought, she had unconsciously made her way to the first-year classrooms as soon as morning classes ended. Now, looking at the curious glances from the first-year students around her, she suddenly wanted to sigh. Maybe she had acted too impulsively. Even though he gave a good impression, I should have waited until after school to come find him. Utaha's gaze fell on Makoto, and she thought, well, I'm already here. And simply asked, Fushimi-kun, are you free right now? I was just about to go to the cafeteria. Makoto replied honestly. Utaha hesitated. That impression of him being approachable and kind surfaced again. Ignoring the stares from the people around them, she softly asked, I haven't eaten either. Want to go together? Sure. After the two walked off, the students who had remained frozen in place finally snapped out of it. What the hell, how does he even pull that off? One boy said sourly. But no one agreed with him. Instead, someone muttered, do you think it's too late for me to ask Fushimi-senpai to be my mentor? Yeah. Why didn't I think of that? We could totally learn from him. Don't even think about it. I'm the kind of guy who's willing to kneel and take notes while he lectures. The sour guy from earlier immediately jumped back in. Wait, I haven't even gotten on the train yet. Count me in. I didn't expect you to come find me this quickly, and at lunchtime too. After they got their food and sat down in the cafeteria, Makoto brought up the topic himself. Utaha looked a bit awkward and mumbled, I didn't expect it either. Makoto tilted his head curiously. It's nothing. Utaha quickly adjusted her expression and looked directly at him. You and Matsuke-sensei are pretty close, huh? Yeah, we are. No wonder she suddenly made that suggestion yesterday. Utaha nodded. Her hunch was right. Makoto smiled. Since senpai noticed that, why didn't you say anything at the time? Utaha was about to respond when he added, oh, I get it now. What is it you get? Makoto made a thinking gesture. Matsuke-sensei has a good impression of you, so yesterday, she wasn't just helping me. She was helping both of us. Utaha froze for a moment. Right, it wasn't just him who benefited. She did too. If he really was as good as Matsuke-sensei said, then gaining a friend like him was certainly more of a gain than a loss. Though Utaha knew she wasn't very good at handling interpersonal relationships, she wasn't foolish enough to reject one that came right to her doorstep. Besides, thanks to that aura of his, she already had a pretty favorable impression of Makoto. So she was happy to accept this budding connection. Wait a second. Didn't he also know Yukino and the Nakano quintuplets? Utaha recalled the rumors she'd heard in the past couple of days. She'd heard that Yukino was extremely outstanding, currently ranked second in their year. The quintuplets, while not particularly good at studying, were said to be quite wealthy according to classmates' gossip. As everyone knows, interpersonal relationships are a mysterious thing. Once you get to know one great person, you may gradually get to know their friends too. And all of that counts as a gain. After a brief silence, Utaha felt she'd completely figured things out and said, "Looks like I should find time to thank Matsuke-sensei properly." "You definitely should." Makoto wasn't sure what she'd just imagined, but judging by her expression, she seemed to be in a good mood. Her relaxed demeanor now only added more charm to her already cool beauty. "Is the Black Stockings senpai hot?" On a scale of 1 to 10, she's easily a 9 or 10. "Matsuke-sensei mentioned a story yesterday. Do you mind talking about it now?" Utaha decided to get to the main topic. "Sure." Makoto handed her the notebook. After she finished reading it, her reaction was much like Yukino's. "The ending is absolutely chilling, but also really brilliant." "Thanks. I wrote it on a whim after getting the idea." "Senpai, do you think this kind of story could be adapted into a novel?" "A novel?" Hearing the word, Utaha's expression shifted slightly. Makoto pretended not to notice. "Yeah, I've been thinking. Should I turn it into a novel, or maybe a script?" Utaha fell quiet for a second, sounding a bit incredulous. "You can write scripts too?" "I've studied them for quite a while." "Matsuke-sensei knows about it too." "Are all the new first years this impressive now?" Utaha's well-endowed chest rose and fell as she once again thought of how Mayu had introduced her to Makoto. Looks like she'll have to buy a gift and go thank her properly. Over the next stretch of time, Makoto used all the knowledge he'd gathered during his time loop experiences to keep the conversation lively and engaging. And because of that, the way Utaha looked at him changed. From polite friendliness to a deeper, more intense gaze. Using internet slang to describe her feelings, Makoto really knows how to deliver emotional value. Not only could he talk with her easily, he could make her laugh too. She had never connected with a guy this well before. No. Not even with girls. It gave Utaha the illusion that she'd known him for years. He seemed to understand her preferences, had a shocking wealth of knowledge, and could answer her questions effortlessly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she discussed a lot of novel-related topics with Makoto, and each time he not only had answers, but could teach her even more advanced knowledge. He even knew insider industry gossip. After lunch, Utaha gave Makoto a satisfied smile. "Thank you for all the answers today. I've learned a lot." Makoto shook his head. "It's mutual. Through conversation, both of us can grow to be better. Senpai doesn't need to thank me." Utaha's beautiful eyes shimmered with emotion, and the corners of her lips kept rising. That's true. She didn't realize at all that she had been completely captivated. Because in her mind, becoming friends with him really was a good thing. Through this conversation, she became even more convinced that she had to properly thank Mayu for introducing Makoto to her. She also thought of one more thing. If Makoto's talent went far beyond what he showed today, then she might never be able to repay Matsuke-sensei's kindness. After school in the afternoon, Makoto, who wasn't part of any club, left the classroom as usual. He still hadn't gathered all the members, so he wasn't in a rush to apply for a club. When he arrived at the schoolyard, he immediately saw Yukino and Akiko standing at the school gate. Akiko had been looking inside the whole time, so the moment their eyes met, she smiled brightly and waved. Yukino stood beside her with her arms crossed, expression calm. It looked like Akiko had invited Yukino over. Makoto already had a good guess. Before he could say anything, Yukino got straight to the point. "Akiko-san wants to treat us to dinner today." "I've already agreed." "I don't mind," said Makoto. Akiko's smile grew even brighter. "You're probably not hungry yet, right? Want to stop by a dessert cafe first?" But Makoto said, "I've got a better place in mind." Both girls turned their gazes toward him. "Where?" "Makoto, you'll find out soon." 20 minutes later, the three of them walked into a cat cafe. Yukino had barely stepped through the door when she was instantly captivated by all the cats of various colors inside. She couldn't even look away. While Akiko also thought the cats were cute, she asked a bit confusedly, "Fushimi-kun, why did you bring us here?" "If you're looking to kill time, this place has the perfect atmosphere," Makoto said on purpose in a slow, deliberate tone. Akiko assumed he just liked cats and didn't question it further. But Yukino was different. Hearing Makoto's slowed tone, she resisted the urge to smile and turned to look at him seriously. Her eyes clearly asked, "Did you bring me here to try and win me over?" He obviously knew how much she loved cats. And this cafe, filled with adorable cats, was basically heaven for her. So of course she thought Makoto was trying to court her. As she stared at him without hiding her suspicion, Makoto slowly opened his mouth and said, "You're so cringe. I brought you here just to help you relax." Yukino. Akiko, they're having a secret conversation again. Chapter 14, Combos should be smooth, ultimates should be broken. That cringe comment was obviously a joke. But the look in Yukino's eyes asking, "Are you trying to win me over?" Makoto refused to acknowledge that. At least, he wouldn't admit it for now. If he tried to win someone over just by using a cat cafe because they liked cats, that'd be far too simplistic. He had summarized so many points of knowledge. If he wanted to capture Yukino, he'd have to rely on combo moves, and those combos had to be smooth. As for his trump card, he'd have to cheat the system. By trial and error within the time loop. Yukino was slightly skeptical seeing how decisively Makoto denied it. Ever since he first told her about the time loop and openly said, "I've tried to win you over many times." She had already realized one thing: Makoto was a flirt. His talent was undeniably impressive, and he even seemed capable of handling her strict mother. Even in academics, she had fallen behind him. But more than all that, what she really wanted to know now was, what exactly had he experienced in the time loop? And would it happen again in the future? Even though her curiosity was definitely stirring, there was one thing she was absolutely certain of: being friends is fine, but there's no way I'll let him win me over. As a proud and outstanding girl, if she already knew that Makoto was trying to court her and still fell into his trap, wouldn't that make her a complete fool? After they sat down, each ordering a drink, Yukino focused entirely on the cats once she realized Makoto had no intention of explaining anything. Akiko reached out to tease a Siamese cat, though her gaze was fixed on Makoto. "You were right, this place has a great atmosphere. Perfect for killing time." She was clearly trying to start a conversation. Makoto, aware of this, responded, "As long as you're enjoying it." His gaze shifted toward a woman seated further inside the cafe. Next to the woman sat a little girl holding a Rubik's Cube, happily playing with a cat. That mother and daughter pair was actually Makoto's true reason for coming to the cat cafe today. In the time loop, he had accidentally discovered that they often visited this place. The woman's husband was the business partner Mrs. Yukino should have wanted to work with, but so far, negotiations between the two families hadn't gone smoothly. More importantly, the woman wasn't just a housewife. She had real influence in business matters. Makoto recalled the intel he had gathered during the time loop and quickly formed a plan. "Fushimi-kun, I heard from someone today that you had lunch with the famous Kasumijuku-senpai?" Akiko suddenly asked. Makoto pulled back his gaze and looked at her radiant face. "Yeah, she had something to discuss with me." Akiko didn't press further. She absent-mindedly rubbed the cat's belly, casually remarking, "Kasumijuku-senpai really is a rare beauty." "Huh?" Yukino had been quietly admiring the adorable cats, but when she heard that, she frowned slightly. That comment reeked of jealousy. And not even subtle jealousy. Yukino didn't bother engaging in such a dull topic. However, she was curious to see how Makoto would respond. Makoto appeared completely calm, even still looking at the cats. When one beautiful girl suddenly brings up another beautiful girl in front of you, it usually isn't just small talk. He could guess that Akiko was fishing for details about his relationship with Utaha, possibly with some teasing intentions on the side. But he chose to leave her hanging. 5 seconds passed. 10 seconds passed. Makoto kept staring at a nearby ragdoll cat as if he hadn't heard anything. Eventually, Akiko couldn't hold it in anymore and waved her hand in front of his face. When he finally turned to her, she pouted slightly and asked, "Didn't you hear what I said?" To her surprise, Makoto replied, "I heard you." Akiko blinked in confusion. "Then why didn't you answer?" Even Yukino paid a bit more attention. Makoto asked back, "You brought up Kasumijuku-senpai out of nowhere. Are you trying to get to know her?" Akiko curled her lips in a sly smile. "And what if I am? Would you introduce us?" "I would. I'm sure Matsuke's sensei would love to see everyone getting along." "Eh?" Akiko's smile turned into bafflement. Why did he bring up Matsuke's sensei all of a sudden? Was there deeper meaning behind it? She started thinking instinctively. Yukino, watching from beside her, felt nothing in particular. Just as I thought. Akiko-san has some game. But only a little. As an observer, she saw it clearly. Earlier, Makoto hadn't rushed to answer the question, and Akiko had ended up pressing him herself. From that moment, the initiative had already shifted. Then Makoto casually dropped Mayu's name, redirecting Akiko's attention and dissolving her earlier teasing intentions. Yukino thought of a few classmates who loved video games. They often mentioned a certain game term, combo move. What Makoto had just pulled was a neat little combo to reclaim the initiative. And she figured. He probably had one more move. Sure enough, the next moment, she heard Makoto ask, "By the way, Akiko-san, what kind of roles have you played so far?" "Eh? Why are you asking all of a sudden?" Akiko looked a little embarrassed. She was still just a background actress, occasionally lucky enough to land a small speaking part. Makoto seemed thoughtful. "It just occurred to me. If you ever run into acting problems, maybe we could discuss them." Akiko looked up in surprise. "You know about acting too?" I studied it for a while. Makoto replied. You studied this too? Yukino raised an eyebrow slightly. Makoto's combo was exactly what she had anticipated. Akiko not only lost the initiative, but her train of thought was now completely under his lead. Yukino honestly wanted to ask him, just how many things have you studied? How many girls have you tried to win over? But as the words reached her lips, she swallowed them again. Because she remembered something Makoto had said to her before, is it really that hard to admit you care? It was that sentence that made her unable to concentrate on reading for the rest of the day. If she asked now, wouldn't that just give him more satisfaction? And Yukino didn't want to satisfy him. As the conversation continued, Makoto and Akiko started discussing acting in depth. Yukino listened for a while and realized Makoto hadn't lied. He was genuinely knowledgeable. Just look at how Akiko's eyes were sparkling. In that girl's eyes, Makoto had probably become a hidden treasure by now. Yukino pulled back her attention and began to wonder, did Makoto really bring me to this cat cafe today just to kill time? She sank into thought. After a while Akiko was still taking notes seriously, the mother and daughter Makoto had been watching out of the corner of his eye finally made a move. The little girl holding the Rubik's Cube walked toward the counter. As she passed by Makoto's table, she was too focused on the cats in the cafe and accidentally dropped the Rubik's Cube, which happened to roll right to Yukino's feet. Just as Yukino reached out to pick it up, Makoto beat her to it. When she looked up, she saw Makoto holding the scrambled Rubik's Cube and saying with a hint of nostalgia, "It's a 3x3 cube, huh? I used to play with these all the time as a kid. Brings back memories." Then, he looked at the little girl who had been drawn to him and smiled. "Would you like me to solve it for you?" "Yes, please." The little girl nodded eagerly. "I've been working on it for a while, but I still don't know how to fix it." Yukino and Akiko both looked over at this point. Makoto solved the Rubik's Cube in just a few quick moves, making the little girl beam with excitement. "Wow, that's amazing. You just need to learn the method and practice a bit more. You'll be able to do it easily too." Makoto returned the cube to her. Just then, the woman nearby stood up and walked over. As a mother, seeing her daughter chatting happily with a stranger naturally made her concerned. That was exactly what Makoto had been waiting for. "You all seem to be having fun," the woman said, smiling warmly as she joined the conversation. "Mommy, this big brother is so cool. He fixed my Rubik's Cube so fast." The little girl was still thrilled. "Is that so?" The woman gently stroked her daughter's head, her eyes full of affection. Makoto seized the opportunity and said, "Hello, I'm Fushimi Makoto, a first-year student at Toya Inazaki High School. I just happened to pick up your daughter's cube and couldn't resist showing off a little." The woman laughed. "Well, it looks like my daughter really enjoyed your little show." Makoto smoothly turned toward Yukino and Akiko. "These are my classmates." The two girls politely introduced themselves. "Hello, I'm Yukino Shita Yukino." "Hello, I'm Nakano Akiko." Upon hearing their names, the woman was clearly a little surprised for a brief moment, but quickly composed herself. She smiled and asked, "Would it be alright if I joined you? My daughter seems to really enjoy playing with you all." The little girl nodded eagerly. "I want to play with this big brother." Makoto returned a friendly smile. "Of course." Seeing his smile, the woman felt an inexplicable sense of warmth. Not to mention, the name Yukino Shita had clearly caught her attention. With that, she sat down with her daughter. Chapter 15, Only a fool would fall in love with him. My bad, I was down with a fever and haven't had any stock chapters yet yesterday. Enjoy. After the woman sat down with her daughter, she began to chat warmly with Makoto and the other two. Yukino and Akiko both sat up straight, looking serious and polite. Only Makoto remained relaxed as usual. Because he had experienced this scene before in the time loop. When the woman mentioned that her greatest hobbies were petting cats and drawing, Akiko casually said, "Fushimi-kun is really good at drawing. Maybe you two can share ideas sometime." The woman naturally turned to Makoto. He calmly replied, "I have studied it quite a bit." Yukino couldn't help but glance at him. "So you're diving into that too? Seriously, is there anything you haven't dabbled in?" After a brief chat, the woman took her daughter and politely said goodbye, not wanting to overstay. But before she left, she exchanged contact information with Makoto and the others. Once they were gone, both Yukino and Akiko fell into a synchronized silence. And their eyes landed squarely on Makoto. Makoto acted as if he noticed nothing, picking up a calico cat and hugging it. "You approached her on purpose just now?" Yukino said first. It wasn't a question, but a firm statement. Akiko tilted her head, a bit cutely. "So it was on purpose? I thought I was just imagining it." Yukino kept her eyes fixed on Makoto. She wanted an answer. Then, Makoto gently stroked the calico cat, making it purr adorably. Yukino's gaze unconsciously shifted to the cat. Wait, no. Stop looking at the cat. She quickly refocused. Before she could speak again, Makoto said, yes, I did it on purpose. The two girls sitting across from him perked up, waiting for him to continue. Makoto first explained to Akika, Yukino Shita's parents are currently negotiating a very important business deal. But for some reason, it hasn't been finalized yet. Akika looked confused. Why are you suddenly bringing this up? What she was really thinking was, so he knows her parents. How close are they? Yukino, however, looked thoughtful. That Miss Fujiwara just now. Could it be? Exactly. Her family is the one your mother wants to partner with. Makoto answered. Yukino froze. Akika slowly began to understand. So Fushimi-kun was helping Yukino Shita? Then she added, but wait, just having a casual chat doesn't mean she'll agree to work with Yukino Shita's family. Makoto smiled at her. That's the key point. As long as both you and Yukino Shita were present today, that lady will sing your praises when she gets home. He added, and she's no housewife. She has real influence in the family. Akika was about to ask how he knew that, but Yukino beat her to it. Akika-san, does your family have a special background? Makoto looked at the two beautiful girls before him and said slowly, if Yukino Shita is a second daughter, then Akika could be considered the eldest young lady. Akika gave a wry smile and waved her hand. Don't call me weird names like that. No one's ever called me that growing up. I see. Yukino seemed to understand something. When she looked at Makoto again, her feelings had already changed. Makoto scratched the cat under its chin and casually said, tonight, Yukino Shita, your mother will probably call you. In a few days, I might meet with her too. Yukino's face tightened. Clearly, her mother still put a lot of pressure on her. Akika noticed and gently asked, Yukino Shita, are you okay? Yukino shook her head. She didn't really want to talk about her mother. Akika took the hint and didn't press further. She turned to Makoto and smiled. So basically, you used me and Yukino Shita as your prestige shields today? Makoto replied, that's one way to put it. Akika playfully blinked. Then shouldn't you thank me? If I'm thanking people, I should thank your four sisters too. You're a package deal. No problem. I'll accept the thanks on their behalf. Akika said cheerfully. Then she smiled even sweeter, as if remembering something. Oh right, we're all friends now. You can just call me Akika from now on. Sure. Makoto didn't refuse. Akika's eyes sparkled even more. Then can I call you Makoto? Makoto replied, if you don't mind, you can call me Makoto now. Eh? So you like being called Big Brother by girls? I mean, it's not a deal breaker. Akika teased. Yukino listened to their exchange and suddenly felt something strange. That feeling was very clear. But she couldn't pinpoint what it meant at first. Until Akika asked Makoto for acting tips again, and he answered without holding anything back, openly and patiently. She finally understood what that strange feeling was. A sense of disparity. The way he treated Akika was different from how he treated her. Just like how he called her Yukino before, but now it was Yukino Shita. If Yukino had seen A Chinese Odyssey, she might have recalled that famous line from Lady Iron Fan, you used to call me your sweetie. She was certain she had absolutely no romantic feelings for Makoto. So if she still minded this disparity, then the answer could only be one thing, she did, just as he said, care about him. If they had only just met, she wouldn't have felt this way. But things are different now. She had learned about the time loop. She wanted to know the truth. Or perhaps it was more accurate to say, she wanted to seek the truth of this world. Even supernatural phenomena were real. If she didn't figure it out, she'd lose sleep over all the mysteries piling up. And the key to the truth just so happened to lie with Makoto. Yet right now, his attention was mostly on Akika. As he left the cat cafe, Makoto sent a message to Mayu, saying he had made plans with classmates and couldn't come home for dinner. Mayu replied understandingly that it was no problem. After dinner, Akika also got ready to head home. While Makoto was buying water at the convenience store, she noticed that Yukino didn't seem in a hurry to leave, so she asked, Yukino Shita, did you notice? Makoto felt even more approachable today. More approachable? What do you mean? Yukino asked, puzzled. Akika pressed a finger to her lips, thinking. How do I say it? Like, he felt warmer? Closer. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Yukino froze. Yes. I felt that too. No wonder I'm even more conscious of him than before. I agree. Yukino admitted. Akika looked at Makoto, who was checking out at the register, and murmured, if only I'd met him earlier. Yukino replied coolly, is that your genuine thought, or are you trying to test how I feel about him? Akika smiled sweetly. You're overthinking it. I was just reflecting. Yukino recalled that Makoto was, by nature, a flirt. But with her personality, she wasn't one to speak badly of others behind their backs. So when the words came to her lips, she said in a flat tone, "Only a fool would fall in love with him." Akiko was startled. "Why?" Yukino gave a logical explanation. "Haven't you noticed? With the talents he's shown so far, he's bound to be very popular with girls. Doesn't that just prove I have great taste?" Akiko shot back. Yukino was slightly taken aback. She couldn't find a rebuttal. Just then, she heard Akiko mumble softly, "Being a fool isn't so bad." When she looked up, Akiko had already returned to her usual smiling self. It seemed like she'd imagined it. But Yukino knew it wasn't an illusion. "I won't be a fool," she told herself firmly in her heart. After the three of them parted ways and returned home, Makoto picked up 2 cups of milk tea on his way and went straight to Mayu's door. Hearing the doorbell, and within seconds, Mayu opened the door. When she saw Makoto standing there holding something, her beautiful face instantly lit up with a joyful smile. "You're back?" Then she realized how that sounded. Like a wife waiting for her husband to return. And her cheeks instantly flushed. She quickly added, "I mean, your gathering with friends is over?" "Yeah. On my way back, I saw a long line at this milk tea shop and figured it must be good, so I got you a cup," Makoto said, lifting the bag in his hand. "Thanks. Come on in," Mayu said cheerfully, stepping aside. Her expression clearly sent a signal, she wanted company. And in her heart, that person could only be Makoto. Chapter 16. Miss Akiko, who lives in a mess that evening. The woman had just returned home when she pulled her husband aside to talk. "The business partner in your recent deal. Does that include the Yukino Shita family?" "Yes. But they're not the best option, so I'm a bit hesitant." "Go with the Yukino Shita family." "Why?" "Today I met the Yukino Shita family's younger daughter and the eldest daughter of the Nakano family. There was also a boy with them. By the way, he was very good-looking and had a charming presence. Talking with them felt really comfortable. I doubt he comes from an ordinary family." "You mean the Yukino Shita and Nakano families are close?" "Seems like it. Otherwise, why would they be hanging out together? Working with the Yukino Shita family might be a good opportunity. We might even get a chance to meet Director Nakano and the boy's parents in the future." "Good point. Gaining 3 friends in one go is a great deal. I'll call Mrs. Yukino Shita now." At 8 p.m. Yukino, wearing a nightgown, sat in her bedroom, unable to calm down. Just moments ago, her strict mother had called. Not only unusually expressing concern but speaking to her in a very gentle tone. When Yukino, utterly confused, asked why, her mother sounded even more puzzled. "Didn't you help secure a deal for the family? Yukino, you did great today. You became friends with Director Nakano's eldest daughter so quickly. It shows you're making progress." That's when Yukino understood. She didn't like taking credit for things she hadn't done, so she told her mother what Makoto had done. "How did your classmate know about our family's affairs?" Mrs. Yukino Shita asked. Yukino didn't know how to explain and chose to remain silent. "I guess it's something you can't tell me?" "That's fine. He must be an excellent boy. You should cherish that friendship." Mrs. Yukino Shita's voice remained gentle. "I understand." Her mother's rare tenderness left Yukino with mixed emotions. "Sunday is the day after tomorrow. Your father and I are free. Let's meet up. Oh, and be sure to invite that Makoto boy." "Okay." Just before hanging up, Yukino heard her mother say, "You're becoming more outstanding, Yukino. I'm very proud." Yukino was left speechless. She was certain this was all part of Makoto's combo move. From talking to that woman at the cat cafe to her mother praising her. It was all within that guy's calculations. "So this is your strategy?" Yukino stared at her phone and opened Makoto's contact. "Yukino, thanks for what you did today, Makoto. Did your mother call you?" "Of course." He knew everything. Yukino's emotions became even more unsettled. Then a new message came in from Makoto. "Makoto, she wants to meet me, doesn't she?" Yukino, "Yes. Are you free this weekend?" Makoto, "If you prepare a sufficiently sincere thank you gift, I'll be free." Yukino, "This is part of your plan too, isn't it?" Makoto, "You could say that." He wasn't even pretending anymore. Yukino stared at her phone screen. She couldn't help wondering if the thank you gift he wanted was something strange. After all, she had already noticed. Makoto sometimes glanced at her legs. Was he asking for a picture of her legs? Or even worse, did he want to touch them? Yukino's thoughts were a mess. Her phone buzzed again. "Makoto, are you imagining weird things and getting all flustered about them?" "Wait, how well does he know me?" Yukino's eyes widened. "Makoto, don't get carried away. What I want is simple. A good morning and good night from Miss Yukino Shida. That's not too much, right? Yukino froze for 2 seconds, then replied, Yukino, okay, good morning and good night might sound simple, but they carry deeper meanings. People who weren't close didn't say such things. If a girl says good morning to you, it means you were on her mind the moment she woke up. And that she wants your reply. It brought them closer. Yukino thought for a while and put down her phone. It's not like I care about such childish things. That's what she told herself. At the Nakano household. After taking a bath, Akiko didn't even bother with pajamas. She just threw on a pair of shorts and a loose t-shirt. Her fair, smooth legs were completely exposed, gleaming under the light. Most importantly, since it was an all-girls household, she didn't bother with a bra. She walked into the living room and started munching on the cookies Nino had made. Thinking about what Makoto had taught her today. And how he now called her Akiko. Put her in an incredibly good mood, which was obvious on her face. Looks like you had fun with sashimi today? Itsuki's voice came unexpectedly from behind the couch. Itsuki? When did you get here? Akiko nearly choked on a cookie, patting her chest as she turned around in surprise. I'm taking a bath soon. Itsuki said as she sat down next to Akiko. Seeing her posture, Akiko guessed she had something to say. She smiled and asked, how do you know I went out with Makoto today? That grin. It was like a fisherman bragging about their big catch. Makoto? Itsuki froze. Are you two already that close? Akiko grinned even wider. Itsuki pursed her lips. Well, I guess I don't need to ask anymore. The answer's written all over your face. Were you going to ask about Makoto? Something like that. Oh? Do you like him? Akiko asked dramatically on purpose. Itsuki huffed. I'm trying to talk seriously here. Akiko laughed and nodded. Just teasing. Don't take it to heart. But the look on your face now. It's like I hit the mark. Still teasing, huh? Itsuki replied expressionlessly, Fushimi and I already exchanged contact info. Akiko's smile froze. Itsuki continued, he's easy to talk to. I'd like to be friends with him. No way. You're serious? Akiko started to panic a little. But then Itsuki smirked. Role reversal, Akiko. Akiko. Now you know how it feels to be teased, huh? Honestly, you're the eldest, but you never act like it. Itsuki sighed. Only now did Akiko realize she was being messed with. She chuckled awkwardly. Well, you're always keeping the peace around here. Itsuki gave her a resigned smile. Akiko, have you thought things through? Huh? Thought what through? Akiko played dumb. Every time you mention Fushimi, you can't stop smiling. You know that, right? Even that famous Kasumijoku-senpai approached him. And Yukino Shita seems pretty close to him too. Akiko understood what her sister meant and replied with a soft smile, Kasumijoku-senpai probably had a good reason. As for Yukino Shita, she said meaningfully, she doesn't want to be a fool. But I'm willing to be one. Itsuki. Akiko didn't explain further. After all, this was her own private matter now. At 10:30 p.m. Akiko returned to her messy room. She collapsed onto her bed, pulled out her phone, and opened Makoto's line contact. Akiko, are you still awake? She didn't have anything specific in mind. She just wanted to chat. When a girl idly thinks of a particular boy in her downtime, it means she's already halfway to being won over. Makoto, it's late. If you want to chat, it's gonna cost you. Akiko immediately smiled. What fee? Tell me first, I can pay you. Makoto, then, please send me a sweet photo of a beautiful girl. Akiko blushed slightly but sat up straight. Sweet, huh? Beautiful girl, huh? Just wait and see. I'll charm you to death. Akiko raised her phone, found the perfect angle, flashed it as a smile, and took a gorgeous photo of herself. She hit send. Now, she waited eagerly for Makoto's reaction. 1 second. 5 seconds. 10 seconds passed. Just when Akiko was getting puzzled, Makoto finally replied, what's with all those bottles and jars behind you? Boom. Akiko whipped her head around and looked at her messy bedroom. She was lazy and never bothered to clean her room. When she took the photo just now, she was too focused on smiling and forgot about the background. Then another message came from Makoto, there's something I'm not sure I should say. Akiko, go ahead. Makoto, cute Akiko-chan, do you live in a trash heap? Akiko, mental breakdown. So in the middle of the night, Nino, who came out of her room to get some water, witnessed Akiko standing at the bedroom door with a broom in hand. Nino looked completely baffled. What are you doing? Akiko looked slightly ashamed. Cleaning my room. Nino's eyes widened. Did you take the wrong medicine? Akiko looked even more embarrassed. Do you live in a trash heap? Such a small sentence, such a heavy blow. Nino, what's going on? Yotsuba hadn't gone to sleep yet and was curious when she saw Nino spacing out at the door. Nino turned her head in a daze. Akika's gone nuts, she's cleaning her room in the middle of the night. Huh? Yotsuba was stunned too. Then she rolled up her sleeves with a smile, then I'll help too. Chapter 17. Muffled moaning. Makoto got home a little after 8 p.m. He didn't really do much at Mayu's place today. Mostly just chatted with the beautiful teacher and watched some shows together. So tonight, Mayu didn't let him look at her chest. Makoto could tell that ever since that night, especially with the halo effect in play, Mayu had become noticeably more conscious of him. Particularly after that overly ambiguous night. If nothing unexpected happened, it wasn't just Makoto who couldn't sleep that night. Mayu was probably also lying in bed moaning softly, unable to fall asleep. Fill in the blank. Muffled moaning means lying in bed at night, unable to sleep, softly moaning and wanting to. The Yukino-shita couple wanted to meet him, which he had already anticipated. After all, he'd met them before during the time loops. Whether it was the strict and rigid Mrs. Yukino-shita or the gentle and easygoing Mr. Yukino-shita, he had managed to win both of them over through repeated efforts in the time loop. That is, he got close to them. And he'd long since realized something strange. Despite having spent so many years in the time loop and experienced so much, he could remember every single thing that happened. Normally, the longer a person lives, the more memories fade over time. Except for a few significant events. But he remembered everything with perfect clarity, and his brain showed no negative effects. Obviously, this was the result of the time loop. At bedtime, just as Makoto was about to put down his phone, Akika sent a message. He opened it. Another photo. Still her in a short-sleeved shirt and shorts, sweet smile, perfectly angled. But the drink bottles and bento boxes from the previous photo were gone. Akika, I think this one turned out even better. Makoto, did you secretly clean up to save your image? Akika, just tell me. Is it pretty or not? Makoto, pretty. Love it. Can't get enough. Akika, then I'm satisfied. I'm going to bed now. Good night. Makoto had just received the message and hadn't replied yet when another message came in. Akika, by the way, am I the first girl to say goodnight to you? Makoto glanced at the goodnight Yukino had just sent and replied, no. On the other end of the call, the girl curled up in bed frozen with her smile still on her face. I'm not the first? Then whose subordinate is that, acting even faster than me? Akika instantly lost all drowsiness and tapped her screen. So, you're quite popular after all. I wonder which girl said goodnight to you? Makoto, it was Yukino-shita. With a whoosh, Akika performed a dramatic sit-up in shock while dying of illness move. She bolted out of her cozy bed and stared at her phone in a daze. Only an idiot would date him. That line Yukino had once said to her echoed in her mind. Akika bit her lip. So Yukino-shita lied to me? Said one thing, did another? How's that any different from a manipulative girl? Akika pressed her lips tightly together and typed, you and Yukino-shita seem to get along really well. After sending it, she couldn't help but feel nervous. It was a clumsy attempt to probe, but if she didn't ask, she wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. She waited and waited. Finally, Makoto replied, good night, cute Akika. That's not what I wanted to hear. Forget it. I'll ask next time. Akika, good night. Makoto put down his phone and thought to himself, fishing is really fun. Especially when the bait bites the hook on its own, it's even more fun. 2 days later, Sunday. Makoto received a message from Yukino in the morning. Not just a good morning. She also mentioned her parents would be arriving at 8:30 and asked when he would be free to meet them. Makoto thought for a moment and agreed to meet Yukino-shita at 10. After getting her reply, he immediately knocked on Mayu's door. Good morning, Ms. Matsuke's. Are you free today? Makoto got straight to the point. I am. What do you need from me? Still in her pajamas, Mayu was as gentle as ever. Makoto explained that he would be meeting the Yukino-shita couple. Mayu was surprised. You and Yukino-shita-san are already at the meet the parents stage? Makoto, of course not. I just helped her with something, and her parents want to thank me in person. I see. Mayu visibly relaxed. Then she realized. Why was she so nervous? She turned away, hiding her blushing face behind her falling hair. Since it's her parents, I suppose I don't need to go with you? Makoto replied seriously, I can only feel at ease if you're there. Mayu's face turned bright red in an instant. She clenched her fists in joy and shyness, then relaxed and whispered, okay, I'll go with you. Thanks. At 9:30 a.m. Makoto and Mayu left together. The meeting place chosen by the Yukino-shita couple wasn't a cafe or somewhere typical. It was a private home. Yukino had explained via text that this was her mother's temporary residence in Tokyo, used for work. Clearly, the Yukino-shita couple took this meeting seriously. Since it was a house visit, Makoto bought some fruits and desserts on the way as gifts. When they rang the doorbell, Mayu whispered, "Feels like we're attending a parent-teacher conference." "If it's a parent-teacher conference, then what's my role?" Makoto teased. Mayu blushed and giggled. "My colleague?" "Makoto, I think being your child would be more fitting." "How is that fitting? There's not that much of an age gap." Mayu protested shyly. Makoto thought she had a point. Though Mayu was good at taking care of others, her homemaking skills were only average. If we're talking about homemaking and caregiving, clearly Nino is the better fit. Now that I think about it, Nino could totally be the kind of woman I'd want as the mother of my children. Soon the door opened. Standing before Makoto and Mayu was a stylish, elegant, and beautiful woman. She was Mrs. Yukino Shida. Unlike Yukino's flat figure, her body was curvaceous with the mature charm of an adult woman. "Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Yukino Shida. I am a teacher from Toya Inasaki School, Matsuke's Mayu." Mayu appeared slightly reserved. Makoto, on the other hand, was much more relaxed. "Hello, my name is Fushimi Makoto." "Hello, please come in." Mrs. Yukino Shida's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She hadn't expected Makoto to bring a teacher along. The three of them arrived at the spacious and well-lit living room, where Yukino and her father were also present. When Yukino saw Mayu, her expression mirrored that of her mother's. After exchanging greetings, Makoto handed over the gift, and Mrs. Yukino Shida smiled and thanked him. Yukino quietly stood up to pour tea and also brought over some snacks. "Originally, I had planned to invite my other daughter as well, since Fushimi-kun, you've been such a great help. By the way, is it okay if I call you Makoto?" Mrs. Yukino Shida remained exceptionally gentle throughout, behaving like a very easygoing elder. "Of course, it's fine," Makoto said, knowing this wasn't her true face. Sitting beside him, Mayu blinked and thought, "I'll call him Makoto too, that feels more intimate." After exchanging a few simple words, Mayu curiously asked, "Mrs. Yukino Shida, you mentioned that Fushimi-kun helped with a major task, could you tell me more about it?" Mrs. Yukino Shida's smile widened. "To put it simply, it's a collaboration that I had been struggling with for a long time. With his help, our family successfully finalized this business deal." Mayu looked at Makoto in surprise, her expression clearly asking, "You have this kind of ability?" Then, she brightened up, thinking, "No wonder he's my favorite student, he's really impressive." Yukino, sitting across from them, had her eyes flickering. When she received her mother's call that day, she felt much the same as Mayu did now. Not only had she received rare praise from her mother, but her mother was also paying more attention to her. The reason for all of this was pointed at Makoto. "Is this how you're planning to win me over? Improving my relationship with my mother, giving me more of her love and care, and making our family better?" Yukino sighed inwardly. "Can I really handle this kind of approach? Moreover, this guy has a lot of secrets. Just the fact that Makoto can chat easily with my mother," Yukino thought, "makes me feel like I could never do that." At that moment, Mrs. Yukino Shida asked with a smile, "By the way, I heard from Yukino that you seem to know quite a bit about our family's situation?" Yukino immediately became tense. This involved the time loop. Makoto noticed Yukino's shift in mood and thought, Yukino is reacting to this. Chapter 18. Let's stick to our own discussions in the living room. Both of the Yukino Shida parents wore warm smiles. On the surface, Yukino appeared calm, but inside, she was nervous. Mayu watched Makoto with curiosity, her mind also speculating about the true relationship between him and Yukino. This is a long story. Under everyone's watchful gaze, Makoto remained exceptionally composed. Mrs. Yukino Shida had already anticipated this, smiling, "If it's a topic you're uncomfortable talking about, I won't ask." This tactic was one of retreat to advance. Especially when an elder says something like this with Yukino present, it almost feels like a subtle reminder, "I'm very interested in knowing more." However, Makoto cheerfully nodded, "Thank you, Mrs. Yukino Shida, I'll talk about it next time." "Mrs. Yukino Shida?" Yukino, who was sitting beside them, felt a bit awkward but managed to hold back her laughter. "I should have expected this. His personality is like that, and he's probably tried this a number of times in the time loop." The girl naturally caught the brief look of surprise from her mother. "That was close, I almost laughed out loud." At this point, Mayu gently said, "I just remembered, Makoto, you're quite busy normally. If you don't want to talk about this, it's fine to change the topic to something more lighthearted." "Well done, Matsuke's sensei." Makoto thought it was a good choice to bring Mayu here. She was naturally gentle and considerate, and now that her heart was focused entirely on Makoto, everything she said or did came from his perspective. And when she spoke, even if Mrs. Yukino Shida was still curious, she couldn't press further without seeming rude. "Thank you." Makoto sincerely thanked her. No need to thank me. Mayu smiled happily. She wasn't happy because of Makoto's thanks, but because she had managed to call him Makoto. And he hadn't minded at all, accepting it naturally. That was what truly made her happy. Who says a gentle, soft, and cute teacher doesn't have her own little thoughts? Mrs. Yukinoshita observed everything quietly, her thoughts subtly shifting. But she said, since it's inconvenient, let's follow Matsuke-sensei's suggestion and change the topic. Then, with the special warmth of an elder, she asked, Makoto, you've helped me so much this time, I must repay you. Is there anything you want? She had already decided beforehand that a reward was necessary. This would not only help win over Makoto as a junior, but also strengthen his friendship with Yukino. Actually, I do have a favor to ask. Makoto said. Oh? Please, feel free to ask. If it's something I can help with, I'm very willing to assist. Mrs. Yukinoshita said gently. Yukino instinctively looked over, also curious about what Makoto would say. Actually, I'm planning to start a club soon, and if all goes well, I'll be filming a few short films to practice. Filming short films to practice? Yes, because I've written a few stories I'm quite satisfied with. I think I might submit them to a film or TV company in the future. If they get made into movies or TV shows, that would be a real achievement. Hearing Makoto's words, everyone except Yukino couldn't help but be a little surprised. High school students were supposed to focus on studying or dating, right? Maybe even join the soccer or baseball club and dream of entering the professional leagues. Yet, Makoto had taken a huge leap far beyond their expectations. Only Yukino silently nodded. She had already considered that the stories Makoto wrote were very suitable for adaptation. And she had heard him mention that he had 9 more stories like that. Young people these days are really impressive. Mr. Yukinoshita remarked. Mrs. Yukinoshita asked, would you like me to help you contact a film or TV company? Makoto nodded. No problem, let's exchange contact information. You can reach out to me anytime. Mrs. Yukinoshita took out her phone and casually added, although I don't know much about the film industry, I've met some people in the business at events, including some current actors. I should be able to help. Makoto, I'll leave it to you, then. Do you have any other requests besides this? Mrs. Yukinoshita brought the topic back. She had remained generous and approachable throughout, clearly trying to leave a good impression. Makoto, if possible, I have one small request. What is it? I would really appreciate it if you could treat me as an equal peer, so I can feel more accomplished. Treating me as a peer? What is Makoto trying to do? Yukino furrowed her brows. Mrs. Yukinoshita laughed. What kind of request is that? Mr. Yukinoshita chuckled. Ever since we met, I've thought you were a bit too mature. But now, finally, you're showing the attitude of a young person. Mayu also covered her mouth, chuckling. Clearly, they all understood. Many high school students at this age are the most sensitive and eager to feel mature. This age group is on the cusp of adulthood, desiring to grow up quickly, while also feeling anxious and excited about the new world ahead. Both Yukinoshita parents had been through this stage themselves. To them, Makoto had the same youthful aspirations. He didn't want to be seen as a child. That was why Mr. Yukinoshita had made that comment. Only Yukino felt restless. This guy has grown up in a time loop. She absolutely didn't believe that Makoto still had the immature, Chunabiu side of a teenager, or that he longed to grow up. Makoto, I'm sure you don't want to be treated like a child, right? Mayu asked with a gentle smile. Makoto, yeah, I've always thought that way. He's lying. Yukino took a deep breath. Mayu's gaze softened, then, privately, we can treat each other as friends. Mrs. Yukinoshita smiled. If it's just such a simple request, I'll treat you like a friend, as long as it's not in front of outsiders. Mr. Yukinoshita joined in. I'm fine with that too. Wait. Aren't you going to ask my opinion? Yukino was starting to feel anxious. That's great. Makoto said, his face beaming. Then, he looked at Yukino in confusion. By the way, if we really treat each other as friends, what about Yukino? Yukino stared at him blankly. That little expression seemed to ask, is this another one of your moves? Makoto pretended not to notice. How about this, we'll each play our part. Yukino, you call me big brother, and I'll call you classmate. I refuse. Yukino immediately responded without hesitation. Mr. and Mrs. Yukinoshita exchanged smiles. They could feel the youthful energy from Makoto again. Now, this felt right. Just now, his overly mature speech had made them feel like they were talking to someone their own age. Makoto's unique charm made the Yukinoshita couple quite fond of him. Everyone was happy about this meeting. Except for Yukino. The Yukinoshita couple even invited Makoto and Mayu to stay for lunch, as it was almost mealtime. Neither Makoto nor Mayu refused. Yukino watched as Makoto's relationship with her parents improved, and she suddenly thought of a term. Doing as one pleases. Yes, exactly. Doing as one pleases. With the growth he gained from his time loops, Makoto could easily handle people and situations he had encountered before. She even suspected that, today, Makoto had only done a few basic things in front of her usually intimidating mother. If that was the case, then this guy could really get away with doing whatever he wanted in her house. Yukino thought about it, then couldn't help but say softly, "Mother, I'd like to speak with Fushimi-kun alone." "Of course." Mrs. Yukino Shita nodded. Yukino gave Makoto a look, and he calmly stood up. As the two of them reached the balcony, Yukino was thinking about how to start the conversation, but then she heard Makoto casually say, "Yukino Shita, what are you thinking? Tell me, and I'll help you figure it out." Yukino's pretty face darkened. Just as she was about to coldly reprimand Makoto, he said another sentence. "In the future, your relationship with Aunt Yukino Shita will keep improving, and I'll help you with that." Yukino froze. The anger that had just risen in her heart instantly disappeared. She looked at Makoto with a complicated gaze. "Didn't you say at the cat cafe that you didn't plan to win me over?" Makoto replied, "That's right." Yukino bit her lip. "Then why are you helping me like this?" Makoto replied, "Because you won't even call me Oniai-chan, so I'll have to step up my efforts." Yukino unexpectedly didn't argue, instead staring at his face with eyes full of emotions. Chapter 19, He's nicer to Akika. Yukino's emotions were somewhat complicated at this moment. Before today, she thought the meeting wouldn't go very well and might even cause Makoto to develop some thoughts about her family. After all, her mother had subtly suggested over the phone that she should carefully manage her friendship with Makoto. This meant her mother was definitely trying to probe Makoto's family background and possibly set plans in her mind. Given what Yukino had come to know about Makoto recently, she didn't believe he hadn't noticed this. But the atmosphere of their conversation today was not only excessively pleasant, but Makoto's performance could even be described as leisurely. It was just like when they first met, and he set an alarm for a minute to save that mother and son with perfect timing. Yukino's surprise and doubts were no less than that day. "Actually, you don't need to overthink things." Makoto's voice broke the silence. Yukino quickly regained her composure and looked at his calm face. "You already know?" "Know what?" "My thoughts." Makoto laughed. "Your thoughts are practically written all over your face, how could I not know?" Yukino suppressed the impulse to touch her face and adjusted her mood. "Why did you ask my parents to treat you like an equal peer?" Makoto had expected this. "Because I don't want them to treat me like a child." His answer wasn't a lie. With the system tasks, of course, he wanted to become Yukino's elder. At least in terms of address, he was determined to do so. Yukino stared at him for a few seconds but couldn't detect any lies. Yukino's expression became subtle. "Do you still care about this kind of thing?" "Why wouldn't I care?" Makoto asked in return. Yukino glanced quickly at the living room and lowered her voice. "You said you spent a long time in the time loop. You shouldn't have such a youthful desire to grow up." Makoto smiled calmly. "It's exactly because I've experienced so many things that I don't want to be treated like a kid." Yukino paused. This reasoning made sense. She even thought it was quite reasonable. "How about it? Are you willing to call me Oniai-chan?" Makoto brought the topic back. Yukino suddenly asked, "You mentioned wanting to make short films to practice and possibly develop in the film industry, is that true?" "Yeah, it's also a way to keep myself busy. Otherwise, wouldn't everything I've learned go to waste?" Makoto answered patiently. "Are you planning to create a club yourself?" "Yes. I understand." Yukino took a breath and gazed into Makoto's eyes. "If you don't mind, I'd like to join your club. You were already in my plans for membership," Makoto said. Somehow, Yukino felt a bit happy inside. It was happiness from being recognized and trusted. A faint smile appeared on Yukino's face. Makoto asked again, "Can you call me Oniai-chan now?" Yukino's smile froze, and she finally showed an expression of dislike. "Are you really that concerned about it?" Makoto lazily dropped the bombshell. "If I ever go through the time loop again, I can take you with me." Thump. Yukino's heart skipped a beat. Unconsciously, she clenched her little fist. This guy was fishing. He knew I wanted to get to the bottom of things, and yet he willingly threw out the bait. But Makoto didn't stop there. "Remember what I said that day? Except for you, everyone else just treats the time loop like a joke, so that's why I trust you so much." He looked directly into Yukino's beautiful eyes. Yukino felt the intense emotion in his gaze. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she turned her body a little, trying to hide her shyness behind her hair. This heavy trust made her feel embarrassed for the first time in her life when facing someone of the opposite sex. She stayed silent for nearly 3 seconds. Finally, she shyly whispered, "When's your birthday?" "January 1st. Makoto understood her meaning. Yukino pretended to be calm and nodded. "You're 2 days older than me." This was her way of finding an excuse. Then, she still didn't make eye contact with Makoto and turned her face slightly to softly call out, "Nisama." It wasn't an intimate Onyai-chan, but a more formal Nisama. Makoto smiled contentedly, because he heard the mechanical sound of the system's notification. "Congratulations, host, you've completed the newbie task reward, all-round girl badge. This is a gift from the genius girl Yukino Shita Yukino, who truly considers you a friend and appreciates your care and concern as an elder. With this badge, everything you do will have far superior efficiency, and your improvement speed will be several times faster than normal people." Makoto's first thought upon receiving the reward was, does this mean Yukino will never be able to surpass me in studies? After Yukino awkwardly called out Nisama, she secretly observed Makoto's expression. Seeing that he was simply smiling contentedly without teasing her, she relaxed. This guy had been helping her all along, and now he was even planning to help her improve her relationship with her mother. This was exactly what an elder would do. As she thought about it, her emotions gradually settled down. But just as she was about to speak, Makoto suddenly said, "From now on, we're brothers." "Yukino." "Makoto, if anyone bullies you at school, just report my name as your brother." "Yukino." As expected. This guy still had some mischievousness in him. Yukino couldn't hold it in anymore and shot him a fierce glare, her face turning red. "How cute." Makoto was in a good mood. He then said, "When you're with your mother, you can relax a bit. She's probably pleased with your growth. I'll continue to help you, so you don't need to stay tense when interacting with her anymore." Yukino froze. She felt her cheeks heating up again. This time, she didn't avoid Makoto's gaze and softly said, "Thank you. No need for such words between brothers." Makoto waved it off. Yukino, who disliked such topics, pretended not to hear. "I remember you used to call me Yukino, why did you start calling me Yukino Shita later?" "Makoto, because I felt you weren't comfortable with it." Yukino fell silent. She indeed felt uncomfortable. But she could tell that this wasn't Makoto's real reason. Thinking about how he now directly calls Akiko by her first name, the familiar feeling of disparity rose in her heart again. "He's nicer to Akiko." "Alright, we should head back." Makoto's voice came through. Yukino gave a soft but didn't voice her thoughts. Just as she was about to return to the living room, her peripheral vision caught Makoto extending his left hand, already reaching behind her. Yukino frowned. "What are you doing?" "Makoto, I told you, you can completely relax. Don't stay so tense. At least now, Aunt Yukino Shita is easy to talk to. Especially since she sees how well we get along, she'll be even happier and will naturally have a better opinion of you." Yukino felt a little embarrassed. She had indeed been thinking about facing her mother again, and the feeling of tension unconsciously rose within her. Smack. Makoto gently patted her on the back. The girl glared at him with a stern face. Makoto also maintained a stern expression. "Stay sharp, we're all from the same school, don't embarrass yourself." The two of them returned to the living room. As Makoto had said, Mrs. Yukino Shita was exceptionally kind. In her eyes, her daughter and Makoto had already become close enough to exchange whispers, which made her even happier. Yukino gradually relaxed in this atmosphere. It was all thanks to him. Her heart felt a little chaotic. Makoto knew Yukino and her husband very well. He had also read summaries by some experts online, so the atmosphere during this lunch was very pleasant. Mr. Yukino Shita was in a good mood from their conversation and even poured himself a glass of sake. Women generally have smaller appetites, so it wasn't long before Yukino and the others were done eating, while Makoto was still chatting and laughing with Mr. Yukino Shita. Mrs. Yukino Shita glanced at Mayu, who was clearly looking at Makoto, and smiled. "Matsuke-sensei, would you like to move to another place to chat?" Mayu paused and nodded with a smile. "Sure." Yukino knew her mother couldn't help but probe for information. After hesitating for a moment, she gathered her courage and stood up. Mrs. Yukino Shita glanced at her daughter but didn't reject her. The three of them went to the study, and just as Yukino had guessed, her mother's first question was, "Matsuke-sensei, you seem to be very familiar with Makoto? Can you tell me about that boy?" Mayu answered honestly, "Sure, Makoto is very good at his studies, and he's also good at drawing. Oh, and he can even fix pipes." Mrs. Yukino Shita listened patiently, although she wasn't interested in this kind of information. Yukino, however, was very attentive, thinking to herself that he knew so many things. After a while, Mrs. Yukinoshita smiled and asked, besides these everyday things, do you know anything else about Makoto? Eh? Mayu was a bit innocent and didn't quite understand. For example, Makoto's family situation. Sorry, I really don't know about that. Mrs. Yukinoshita didn't show any disappointment and softly said, it's okay, I was just asking casually. Then she smoothly changed the topic. Yukino and Makoto seem to be good friends now, and I'm happy about that because she rarely has friends, let alone someone she brings home to meet me. Mayu looked at Yukino in surprise. Really? I thought a girl as outstanding as Yukino would have a lot of friends. Like, her relationship with Akiko seems really good. They even went shopping together. She added, this is what Makoto told me. Mrs. Yukinoshita immediately turned to look at her daughter. Yukino remained calm. I do know Akiko, and yes, we've had a meal together. That's something only good friends would do, right? Mrs. Yukinoshita's smile deepened. The Nakano family was someone she had been paying attention to. After all, their father had quite the connections. Now that Mayu and her daughter had confirmed it, she was even happier. The three of them chatted casually for a while before ending their conversation. However, when they reached the study door and saw what was happening in the living room, all three women were completely stunned. Because Mr. Yukinoshita was flushed from the alcohol, with his arm around Makoto's shoulders, holding a wine glass, and slurring drunkenly. Alright, no need to say anything else. From now on, we're brothers. I haven't met someone like you in a long time. Everything you said, it really hit home. You really understand me. Makoto raised his juice glass. Big bro, stop drinking, you're already drunk. Usually, when a drunk person hears something like this, they would argue. But Mr. Yukinoshita was different. What do you mean drunk? I'm always like this, okay? Have you been practicing your observation skills over the years? Come on, let's keep drinking. After saying that, he grabbed his wine glass and took a gulp. The three women at the study door were dumbfounded. Yukino held her forehead, thinking, Makoto, you really are something. You not only managed to handle my mother but also my father. Mrs. Yukinoshita couldn't help but show a slightly embarrassed expression and coughed lightly. He got my husband all hyped up. Mayu blinked. Well, now they really are peer friends. Yukino was stunned. That guy called my dad his brother and called me his brother, so what does that make our relationship? Chapter 20, Ultra-fast driving. Makoto and Mayu left at 2:30 in the afternoon. Originally, Mayu had planned to leave after lunch, but Makoto got her so engaged in conversation that she refused to leave. In the end, it was Mrs. Yukinoshita who stepped in to prevent her husband from continuing to get drunk and saying nonsense. Before leaving, Yukino quietly approached Makoto and asked, what did you talk about with my father? Makoto's response was, I just chatted with him like an adult, talking about work and life pressures, and the more he talked, the happier he got. He even drank a few more cups and insisted on making me his brother. Yukino. On the way back, Mayu also asked about it, and Makoto gave the same answer. To this, Mayu covered her mouth and chuckled. You're so annoying. You must be lying to me. Mr. Yukinoshita looks like such a serious person. He is serious, but the thing is, once a person gets drunk, even the strictest people will show a side of themselves they usually hide. Makoto explained. True. Mayu said, nodding thoughtfully, then tilted her head coolly. So, as it turns out, alcohol is harmful to both body and mind. Don't give me that cute act, or I won't be able to hold back. Makoto knew she didn't mean it, but it was precisely this unintentional display that made her even more adorable. Seeing that she was still thinking seriously, Makoto couldn't help but reach out and pinch her soft, fair cheek. Ow, what are you doing? Mayu's cheek flushed, and instinctively, she tried to pull away. But seeing that Makoto wasn't being mischievous, she allowed him to do so. Matsuke-sensei's skin is really nice. Makoto complimented sincerely. Mayu, caught off guard, smiled happily. Thanks. Makoto continued, only people with particularly good skin have such a nice feel to their cheeks. Mayu blushed and asked, do you want to pinch it again? I do. Very much so. Not just the cheek, but... Makoto quickly stopped himself. The Yukinoshita house is pretty big. I heard from Mrs. Yukinoshita that they have a house in Chiba too, and this house is just for occasional visits. Mayu said with some emotion. Makoto replied, that's nothing. I know a woman named Celia, and her family's house is really spacious. Enough to fit 8 million people. I don't believe it. Mayu laughed. When they passed by a supermarket, Mayu remembered she needed to buy a new desk, so Makoto naturally accompanied her the whole way. He took charge of the desk's transport and assembly. This was how he ended up visiting Mayu's bedroom for the first time. The whole bedroom was clean and bright, with with white walls paired with light-colored curtains. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting parallel shadows on the floor. The water-blue bedsheets and matching quilt were neatly arranged, and the floor was spotless. It was an entirely different style from Akika's room, which Makoto had seen last time. All done. Makoto wiped the sweat from his forehead. Assembling the desk was quite fun. It felt a bit like assembling a figurine. Don't just wipe it with your hand. Mayu hurriedly pressed his arm down and grabbed a handkerchief to wipe the sweat. Thank you, Makoto said, feeling the alluring fragrance from the beautiful teacher, his eyes unintentionally falling on her face and body. Mayu clearly noticed this, her cheeks slightly flushing, but she didn't say anything. After wiping the sweat off him, she tried to compose herself and said, "Let's have dinner at my place tonight. I'll cook." "Sure." Makoto naturally agreed. Then she added, "Do you want to take a shower first?" "Sure, I'll go back home for a bit." "There's no need to go all the way back. You can shower here. I'll run the water for you." Makoto sensed something. Mayu couldn't withstand his gaze. With a flustered and shy expression, she turned her face away. "Why are you staring at me like that?" "Because you're beautiful, I love looking at you, I want to look at you." Makoto didn't voice his suspicion but joked instead. Mayu playfully scolded, "You're talking nonsense again." Makoto took out his house key and handed it to her. "Matsuke-sensei, could you grab some clothes for me?" "Sure." Mayu didn't hesitate and quickly took the key from him. At that moment, Makoto confirmed his suspicion. "She really does want to sneak into my house and spy on me. Only a girl with a close relationship would do something like this." Makoto pretended not to notice. When Mayu finished preparing the water for him, he went to the bedroom to take a bath. Mayu stood still for a few seconds, staring at the closed bathroom door. Suddenly, she picked up the handkerchief from earlier and sniffed it in front of her nose. It smelled like him. This time, her face turned completely red, and a rare, seductive look filled her eyes. After visiting the Yukino Shita household today and seeing how close he and Yukino were, Mayu's heart felt a pang of insecurity. Though she knew her thoughts were inappropriate, she just couldn't help herself. Besides, she had already noticed that Makoto was always attracted to her. Whether it was her face or her body, she always managed to catch his attention. Could this be considered mutual pursuit? She thought of the romantic novels she'd read before, giggling to herself before heading to Makoto's house to grab his clothes. Just as Makoto had guessed, although she didn't rummage through the place, her eyes couldn't stop wandering. Seeing that Makoto's bedroom was equally tidy and clean, she couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. Because now, she couldn't take the opportunity to help tidy up the room. Mayu held the clothes as she returned to the bathroom door. She knocked and said, "Makoto, I found a set of white casual clothes. Is it okay?" "I'm fine with anything." Makoto's voice came through. "Then I'll come in," Mayu said. She pushed open the bathroom door, and in front of her was the wash basin, with a somewhat blurry partition door on the left. She couldn't see Makoto, but she could hear the occasional sound of water from inside. "Just put the clothes there," Makoto said, knowing she was looking at him through the door, so he spoke out loud. "Oh," Mayu responded, but she didn't leave. She remembered the time she had wrapped herself in a towel when she came out, and Makoto had clearly been attracted to her, unable to take his eyes off her. After 3 seconds, she took a deep breath, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness, and asked, "Makoto?" "Huh? Matsuke-sensei, you're still here?" Makoto sounded surprised. Hearing this, Mayu, who had just gathered her courage, hesitated again. But the next moment, she heard Makoto speak lazily, "I was just thinking, the bath is so comfortable, but if someone helped me scrub my back, it would be even more relaxing." Mayu froze for a moment, and without thinking, she responded, "I can do that." "Do what?" I mean, how about I scrub your back?" she asked shyly. "Well, that sounds very domestic," Makoto replied. Upon hearing his response, Mayu blushed and laughed. Because she had indeed thought about helping him with his back, but she hadn't had the courage to say it. In the bathroom, Makoto relaxed, his hand resting on the edge of the bathtub. He thought to himself that another test was about to begin. But he welcomed it. "More tests, please." 2 minutes later, a sound of the partition door being pushed open reached him. Makoto instinctively looked up. He only took a quick glance, but it made him freeze for 2 whole seconds. Mayu had actually changed into a new outfit. No, that wasn't even an outfit. It was just a towel. She clutched the towel with her hand, covering her full and fair body, but this simple attempt at covering up did nothing to hide her alluring curves. Whether it was the steam from the bathroom or her shyness, her face was flushed red, her gaze flickering, and her beautiful, white legs were placed delicately on the bathroom tiles. With a slightly pouty and shy expression, she looked even more seductive, Incredibly beautiful. I was worried about my clothes getting wet, so I changed. She said with a flushed face. Alright, so this is how we're playing it, huh? This was clearly speeding beyond limits. If she was willing to speed now, she would probably go even further later on. Makoto didn't expose her clumsy lie. Don't just stare at me, turn around first, she said in a soft, sweet voice, tinged with shyness. Makoto obediently turned around. He could hear the sound of water splashing as she got into the bathtub. The water rippled, and she did as well. As he looked at the gently splashing water, Makoto suddenly recalled the formula from Gazi: the ripples are delicate, and the waterline lingers without fading. A moment later, Mayu noticed something odd. Makoto, why are you bent over like that? It's nothing. Just a little stiffness in one area. Makoto replied. Chapter 21, What about you? The steam from the bathroom swirled around, eventually condensing into droplets on the white walls, falling one by one. Mayu's face had already turned a charming shade of red. She held a towel in one hand, carefully scrubbing Makoto's back with the other, her hand gripping his arm. The warmth from his arm seeped into her palm, causing her heart to heat up as well. Suddenly, she noticed Makoto's breathing seemed to quicken. She couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" "It's nothing. I just feel really comfortable and relaxed," Makoto replied. Mayu chuckled softly. "As long as you're comfortable. I was worried that since this is my first time doing something like this, you might not like it." That sounded a little odd. Makoto thought to himself, if it were Akika doing this, that comment would likely have been a teasing remark rather than an innocent comment. Mayu didn't think much of it. Hearing his satisfied response, her heart was filled with joy, and her earlier embarrassment faded away. Gradually, her movements became more skilled. The way she scrubbed his back was as gentle and caring as her gaze. Whether it was tolerance or indulgence, she simply hadn't thought too deeply about it. Living alone in the big city, she was thrilled to have someone who cared for her, someone she found quite likable, and coincidentally, they both lived in the same apartment building. Of course, she was happy. Perhaps feeling that the silence was making things awkward, she decided to bring up a topic. Today, when I was chatting with Yuki no Shita-san, she specifically mentioned our school's Sawamura Spencer. Do you know this girl? I successfully won her over in a time loop. Makoto thought to himself. That blonde, defeated dog sage was practically a textbook case of tsundere. Because of this, she was the girl he thought was the easiest to win over. Makoto answered aloud, I've met her. I heard she's quite popular with the new students. I predict that her popularity will eventually rival Yuki no Shita's. Really? Mayu sounded surprised. She didn't know that. Well, she's cute, petite, and with that blonde hair, it's hard not to notice her. Right, Sawamura-san really is cute. Mayu smiled gently and continued, Yuki no Shita-san seems to have some connections with the Sawamura family. She mentioned hoping that the two girls would become friends. Yuki no Shita and Sawamura? Yes. But Yuki no Shita seemed a bit troubled at the time and didn't directly agree. However, that lady is quite easygoing, she didn't force her daughter. Easygoing? Makoto didn't argue. At this point, since he and Yuki no Shita had become friends, and he had helped the Yuki no Shita family close a difficult business deal, the lady had probably started to warm up to him. If nothing else, Yuki no Shita's mother was likely puzzled by his family background. Though both of his parents were ordinary, he knew a lot about the Yuki no Shita family. By the way, Makoto, is it true you were planning to get into film and television? Mayu shifted the topic to something more serious. Yes, it's true. I'm planning to form a club first. Then you need to find 2 more members. 3 people is the minimum for a club, plus a faculty advisor. No need for an advisor. You're already here, right? Ah, so you've already planned everything? Mayu's eyes sparkled with a smile. Though forming a club was a simple task, she couldn't help but feel pleased that he had thought of her first. At that moment, Makoto spoke up, I think you're done with my back now, right? Mayu froze for a second and nodded, almost. She hesitated, unsure whether to leave, but then heard Makoto ask, so, is it possible for you to do the front too? Huh? Mayu was stunned. The shyness that had been softened moments ago surged back in full force. Makoto remained patient and silent. After nearly a minute, her soft voice sounded, then you can't open your eyes. Makoto replied, I'll try to open my eyes as wide as possible. No peeking. Mayu scolded him playfully, pressing on his shoulder, then whispered, really, well. Just this once. Yes, just this once. She wouldn't indulge him like this again. She said this to herself in her mind. Monday morning. Makoto once again saw the male student lying on his desk in the classroom. As before, the student had brought milk into the classroom, lying with the straw in his mouth, while his left hand fiddled with his phone. He remained vigilant, occasionally looking up to observe. When their eyes met, his smile wasn't as awkward as before. I brought 2 boxes of milk today. Want one? No thanks. Makoto replied. He was already full. The student laughed, saying, You said you were full the other day. I thought about it for a while and realized that the supermarket has been having a milk promotion. You must have bought a lot of milk to have said that, right? Makoto thought to himself, I didn't even think of that explanation. The student asked, So, did you get full again yesterday? Makoto shook his head. No, I was making soy milk yesterday. Huh? I've had soy milk too, but I didn't think you would be making it at home. Sounds like a hassle. It is a hassle. Makoto replied. Actually, Makoto wasn't the one making the soy milk. It was Mayu. After all, in the ambiguous atmosphere yesterday, it was only natural that they might make a mistake. Right? Good morning, Fushimi-kun. Good morning, Itsuki-chan. Itsuki greeted Makoto and then sat down distractedly. After a while, Itsuki tugged at his sleeve. When he turned to look, he saw her hesitating. Can't you tell me Akika's secret? Makoto guessed the reason. Did Akika do something over the weekend? She basically slept until lunchtime and then rushed out in the afternoon, not returning until evening. When Itsuki talked about this, it seemed like she had found an outlet for her frustration. She furrowed her brows and sighed, I don't know what she's up to. She didn't come back until 9 p.m. last night. It's really worrying. Makoto understood. Akika had likely received another minor role. Itsuki now looked clearly worried. Fushimi-kun, if you're still not willing to tell me, can you at least answer one question? What question? Is Akika's secret going to bring her danger? Oh no, that word might be too extreme, maybe I should say trouble? Not really. Is that so? Itsuki let out a sigh of relief. She rubbed her temples and gently said, Nino wanted to corner Akika yesterday and interrogate her, but Akika is quick-witted, and she knows us 4 very well, so she managed to brush it off easily. Makoto rarely became serious. You don't have to worry. She won't cause any trouble or be in danger. Also, I suspect that she'll definitely tell you all about it later. Itsuki pouted, I wish it were true. She's the eldest daughter, but she always acts so careless at home, and she's even too lazy to clean her room. At this point, she suddenly muttered, Oh right, that night, it seemed like Akika took the wrong medicine. She stayed up all night to clean her room, and only Yotsuba happily went to help her. The rest of us couldn't figure it out all night. Makoto struggled to keep his composure. Clearly, this was his fault. Akika, living in a mess. JPG then he remembered something. By the way, Itsuki, do you have time after school today? I'm planning to start a club and I'll invite Akika along. Itsuki froze, her beautiful face filled with astonishment. Why all of a sudden? Akika never mentioned this to me. I was planning to tell her today. Then she must be willing to join. Itsuki recalled the conversation she had with Akika that night, where the latter almost wrote I might be in love on her face. Makoto asked, What about you? Itsuki seemed to not have reacted. Me? What do you mean? Makoto was direct. Are you willing to join the club? They were 5 sisters, quintuplets. Girls who grew up together since childhood often have their preferences and dislikes influenced by their sisters. So one could conclude, if Akika and Itsuki joined, the others wouldn't be far behind. Makoto thought smugly. Chapter 22, Then I'll ask you and you? It was a simple question, but when it fell on Itsuki's ears, it strangely made the girl feel shy. He didn't mention Akika, but immediately told me. Did this mean something special? Or was it that I was an important opposite gender friend to him? Yes, the girl's shyness was purely because she thought of friendship. Itsuki's personality was too serious. When she heard Makoto's straightforward question, she didn't think it was about romance at all. Her mind raced, and looking into Makoto's sincere gaze, she hesitated and said, I haven't really thought about the club thing yet. I can tell. Makoto nodded. Eh? You could tell? I've observed a bit when I was free. It seems like, except for Yotsuba, who often helps out in various clubs, the 4 of you seem to have more free time. So you were already paying attention to Yotsuba? When Itsuki mentioned her sister, her smile softened a lot. Makoto stepped back and said, If you're unwilling, I definitely won't force you. These things should depend on your own willingness. Itsuki quickly waved her hands. That's not what I meant. I'm not unwilling, I just... She sounded uncertain and quietly added, I just don't know what kind of club you're planning to form, and I'm worried that I might not be able to help. After all, the person standing in front of her was Makoto, the top student in the grade. Even Yukino, who was often mentioned in conversations among girls, ranked below Makoto. A bad student hearing that a genius was forming a club and wanted her to join naturally made her hesitate? The club I want to form is actually very simple, and what we'll do isn't difficult. Plus, even if there are things you don't understand, you can always ask me. Makoto had long expected Itsuki's hesitation. Itsuki, hearing Makoto say this, seriously nodded her little face. I understand. I'll join. Thank you. Makoto smiled and thanked her. Itsuki smiled back. No need to be so polite, we're friends. Since I'm the first one who knows about your club, I'll make sure to help you. If Makoto knew her thoughts at that moment, he would definitely say, Itsuki is so cute. After an entire morning, Makoto had lunch alone. He didn't mind that Yukino hadn't come to look for her older brother. After all, he had only met her parents on the weekend and so many things had happened. With her prideful and reserved nature, she was probably still recalling the term older brother in her mind. Makoto invited Itsuki to join the club not just to bring all 5 sisters in. He had another goal. Nakano Maruo. Now that he had completed 2 beginner tasks, the remaining task wasn't too difficult for him. Given Nakano Maruo's deep concern for his daughters, he probably had heard some rumors about the relationship between Makoto and Itsuki. If Makoto continued to improve his relationship with Itsuki, he believed Nakano Maruo wouldn't sit idly by. Nakano-san, my 5 motorcycles are parked downstairs at your place, are you okay with that? During the afternoon gym class, Makoto played some volleyball with a few familiar male classmates and broke a sweat. He actually felt regretful about his physical fitness. Though his body wasn't bad, he couldn't increase his physical strength during the time loops, which still frustrated him. Every time the time loop reset, his body would return to its original state, and he couldn't improve his physical fitness by accumulating time. FW system, can you open a back door for me? Makoto asked in his mind. Which aspect does the host refer to? I want to improve my physical fitness in the time loop, can you think of a way? Host, do you not remember? The time loop resets your body state each time to ensure your safety. I know, hurry up and use your invincible authority to think of something. Host, this is really difficult for me, then let me ask you, you don't want to be stuck in this internship forever, right? I want to improve, you want to improve, don't we all want to progress together? After Makoto's persuasion, the system stayed silent for 2 minutes before replying. Host, you're right. I really want to improve, so? Once you finish all the beginner tasks, the system will upgrade a bit, and I can give you a back door. Great, full of spirit. Makoto suddenly stood up. At that moment, Hayato, who was coming toward him, was startled. What happened? Makoto, nothing, just stretching my muscles. Hayato was still with the same group of friends, and Yumiko wasn't attending class with the girls. Instead, she ran over. This warm-hearted guy generously handed Makoto a bottle of water and said with a smile, I saw you playing volleyball earlier, your athletic ability is really outstanding. Makoto thanked him. In general, high school students are in their peak state. It was like Makoto often heard people in their 30s and 40s say, if I were still in high school, I could conduct a whole night of lectures without exhausting myself. Did you come to talk to me? Makoto took a sip of water. Hayato stood next to him. I heard some things at school and thought it would be better if you knew sooner. What did you hear? This time, it was Yumiko who asked. Hayato smiled at her and didn't answer. Instead, he gestured for Makoto to lean in. His posture clearly showed he didn't want others to overhear. Makoto leaned in curiously, but before Hayato could speak, Yumiko spoke in a dissatisfied tone. Hayato, are you confessing to him? Why are you being so mysterious? Makoto almost burst out laughing. Hayato helplessly said, don't say things like that, it's troublesome. Yumiko pouted, you're purposely not letting us hear, this looks like a confession. Makoto held back his laughter and teased, you got it wrong, I'm the one confessing to Hayama. Hayato paused, then laughed, exactly. Yumiko remained expressionless, you two really have great chemistry. Do I need to wish you both luck? In the end, Hayato still avoided Yumiko. He told Makoto that there had been many rumors recently at school about him. For example, he might be dating Yukino, or Akika, or even Utaha. At the moment, it was just a small-scale rumor. If it weren't for Hayato's great popularity, even he might not have heard these rumors. I think this is personal, so I didn't tell anyone. Hayato lowered his voice and reminded him, I suggest you don't let these rumors spread. Otherwise, both you and Nakano-san will be affected. Makoto nodded, though I don't mind the rumors, you're right, I need to consider them. Hayato instinctively asked, do you have a plan? I do. It's not hard to deal with. We just need to create a more attention-grabbing rumor. Most of the gossipers are forgetful. Sounds reasonable, like what? Like you secretly having a crush on me, I think that works perfectly. The two chatted casually for a while. Before leaving, Hayato couldn't help but ask quietly, "I'm actually a bit curious, who are you dating right now?" He quickly added, "Of course, if you don't want to answer, that's fine, I'm just asking casually." Makoto replied calmly, "I'm pursuing all three of them." Hayato burst out laughing, "No one believes that. If you were a girl, would you believe I'm even chasing you too? I think you're really hungry." After school, Makoto waited for Atsuki to pack up before leaving the classroom together. "I told Akika during lunch, she'll be waiting for us at the school gate." Itsuki, rarely showing any energy, was full of anticipation for the upcoming club life. As the two walked toward the playground, Makoto saw Akika waiting at the gate. But the problem was, there was also a tall, well-endowed girl in black stockings standing very close to Akika. Itsuki naturally noticed it too and muttered in confusion, "Why is Akika with Kasumijoka-senpai?" Chapter 23, Akika's gaze is getting silky. Makoto could more or less guess the reason Utaha was here. She probably gained a lot from their last conversation and had come back to seek more guidance. Of course, he meant that in the serious, academic sense. "You're finally here." Akika smiled brightly the moment she saw Makoto and Itsuki approach. She wasn't surprised they came together. They were classmates, after all. Meanwhile, Utaha lifted her head when she heard Akika's voice. Upon seeing Makoto, her previously indifferent expression softened. "Akika, you and Kasumijoka-senpai." Itsuki looked at the two curiously. Akika smiled and said, "Senpai is like me. She's waiting for someone too." As she spoke, she glanced at Utaha, seemingly unintentionally. "Even though she didn't say who she's waiting for, I suspect we're both waiting for the same person." Utaha admitted frankly, "I am indeed waiting for Fushimi-kun." "I knew it." This woman was clearly the take action immediately type. Akika's smile didn't waver, but internally she was already on alert. Makoto found the situation amusing. Was this the beginning of a love triangle? He turned to Akika and said, "Good timing, Akika. I have something to discuss with you." Then he looked to Utaha on his left. "Senpai, would you like to talk as we walk?" "Sure." That was exactly what Utaha had in mind. And so, the four of them, each with their own thoughts, left under the gossiping gaze of their classmates. Itsuki was looking forward to the club activities. Akika was on guard against Utaha. Utaha was thinking about learning more from Makoto. Amid such an atmosphere, Makoto naturally spoke up first. "Akika, I'm planning to start a club. Itsuki has already joined. I'm in." Akika didn't even let him finish before making her decision. Itsuki wore an "I knew it" expression. Makoto chuckled. "Aren't you going to ask what kind of club it is?" Akika deliberately said, "If even Itsuki joined, of course I have to join too. We're besties, right? Now you remember we're besties. Then why don't you tell everyone your secret?" Itsuki pouted. Makoto had expected this reaction. "In that case, with Yuki no Shida, that makes 4 of us in the club." Akika was stunned. "Wait, I'm the third person to know about this. Is that fair?" Just as she was about to start overthinking, Makoto continued, "Akika, the club I want to form is a bit special. In my plans, you're definitely the club's ace." "Ace?" That caught the attention of all 3 girls. Makoto met their gaze. "Yes. As the ace, there will be a lot to do. It might be exhausting, which is why I hesitated to tell you." "No worries. I'll give it my all." Akika's smile instantly became radiant. The little sense of disappointment she had felt before disappeared without a trace. So I'm the ace in his mind. Utaha perked up with interest. "What's the club called, Fushimi-kun?" "Supernatural Investigation Club." Makoto casually dropped a name that left the girls baffled. "What's that supposed to mean?" Utaha looked puzzled. Itsuki was confused too. "Sounds weird." Only Akika kept her eyes fixed on Makoto. Her attitude could be summed up with a meme face, "I don't care what it is. I'm joining anyway." Makoto didn't rush to explain and suggested, "Let's find a place to sit first." Utaha immediately responded, "Can we go to the bookstore? I was planning to buy some books." "Oh? So senpai's heading to a bookstore? I know one nearby that's popular among our classmates. Want to go there?" Akika smoothly jumped into the conversation. In her mind, there was no way she was letting Makoto and Utaha talk alone. Her quick interjection finally made Utaha suspicious. "Interesting." Utaha noticed something and flashed Akika a smile that was anything but sincere. "I don't mind." Makoto and Itsuki also agreed. Once the 4 of them arrived at the bookstore, Makoto immediately recalled. It was the trendy bookstore he'd seen during the time loop. Due to the increasingly competitive market, this store was designed unlike any traditional bookstore. It had walls dedicated to plushies and decorative lights that girls loved. Makoto remembered seeing online that the store owner had invited influencers for promotion, resulting in mixed reviews. Book lovers wouldn't visit, but people looking to take trendy photos loved it. During that period, he was both charming beautiful girls through the time loop and studying tips from internet experts. After entering the store and finding seats, they noticed several girls already taking pictures near the decorative lights. Yutaha frowned. Clearly, she didn't like this kind of aesthetic. Akiko and Itsuki, however, turned to look. Their personalities aligned more with youthful vibes and they were easily drawn to pretty things. Makoto noticed and started talking about the club. I've thought this through. Since it's a supernatural investigation club, we'll need cameras to record our investigations. The girls immediately looked his way. Makoto continued, if we can't capture real supernatural phenomena, then we'll need to write scripts. That'll help us practice creative writing and gain filming experience. Wait a second. Yutaha realized something was off. Isn't this basically a film club? Itsuki had the same thought. Did you start a new club because there's already a film club at school? Only Akiko cupped her face in her hands, eyes sparkling as she gazed at Makoto. A bold thought even popped into her mind, oh my god, this club was basically made for me. After all, she was a part-time actress. Though she'd only played minor roles so far, she'd been honing her skills. If this club really worked the way Makoto described, then the Supernatural Investigation Club would be like a grind spot for her. A place to farm experience. No wonder he said I'm the ace. Akiko's lips curled into a sweet smile. She felt in her heart that this opportunity was not to be missed. She could improve her acting and have more excuses to be with him. You can think of it that way. Makoto didn't deny it. Yutaha didn't comment further. It was his own business, after all. She had no plans to join a club that sounded that weird. Itsuki, on the other hand, was seriously thinking it over. So I'll need to learn writing and filming? I've never done that before. She looked a bit troubled. At that moment, Akiko grabbed her hand and said seriously, don't worry, Itsuki. No matter what difficulties we face, I'll be with you and work hard too. Eh? Itsuki blinked, confused. She didn't really understand Akiko's sudden passion, but it was touching. So she turned to Makoto and said, I'll do my best too. Then it's settled. I'll message you Kinoshita tonight. She probably won't object. Makoto looked toward the sweetly smiling Akiko. Alright, now we can talk about other things. Akiko, you were waiting for me. Was there something you wanted? Akiko beamed and shook her head. No, I just wanted to talk to you. But I didn't expect such a pleasant surprise. Makoto had already noticed the watery shine in her eyes. What, trying to act like a doting girlfriend now? He turned to Yutaha. What about you, senpai? Compared to Akiko's gooey-eyed look, Yutaha was more composed. Last time, I learned a lot from you. Since I had free time today, I wanted to treat you to a meal. A meal? Akiko's eyes sharpened. Her expression practically screamed, my little homewrecker radar is activating. Makoto kept a straight face. It's not just a meal, is it? Yutaha smiled slightly. You're right. I also have a few things I want to consult you about. And I spoke with Matsuke's sensei. You both live in the same building, right? I was planning to visit her, so I figured I'd give you a heads up. Why does senpai need to give Makoto a heads up? Akiko couldn't hold back. Makoto? Yutaha raised her brows in surprise. No wonder she was giving me that look earlier. Turns out their relationship is already this close. Looking at Akiko's outwardly friendly but clearly wary face, Yutaha suddenly felt a mischievous urge rise up. Chapter 24. Both prey and hunter under the gaze of Makoto and the others, Yutaha calmly picked up the tea the bookstore owner had brought. She gently blew away the steam with her red lips, then slowly took a sip. Her deliberately slow movements made Akiko's friendly expression a little more forced. Which only made it more amusing for Yutaha. She had thought Akiko was just a lively, cheerful girl. But now, it seemed she wasn't much different from the typical love-struck girls in class. Teasing a younger girl and watching her get all flustered and red really is quite entertaining. Especially when Akiko's hostility toward her is so obvious. That's what makes it worth it. Yutaha held her teacup and said in a calm tone, I just suddenly realized. I actually learn things pretty quickly. Akiko felt a sense of foreboding in her heart. So? Yutaha looked at her with a half-smile. If I join Fushimi-kun's club, I think I'd be fully capable of taking the ace position. Wicked woman. Akiko's chest, in no way inferior to Yutaha's, slowly rose and fell. She leaned forward slightly, resting her chest on the table. She was entering battle mode. But just then, Makoto's voice suddenly rang out. Nope, senpai, you wouldn't be able to take that position. Yutaha and Akiko were both stunned. Itsuki, on the other hand, asked seriously, why not? Does Akiko have something special about her? Makoto replied earnestly, she does. There are 4 other girls like her. If she's not the ace, how am I supposed to win over the other 4? As alluring as the black stocking senpai is, when it comes to big chests, all 5 sisters have them. When it comes to black stockings, Miku has those too. They're a group of 5 who have both looks and academic ability. And? Utaha had been waiting for more, but after Makoto said she does, he just fell silent. Akika and Itsuki both looked at him. Makoto glanced at the guests taking pictures nearby and said casually,